So in the previous class, we started off with S3, right? We saw what are the different storage classes which are available in S3. And we saw some of
Right.
the basic use cases of S3. I gave you a few examples, right? So we'll continue further with that. Let me know if you have any questions. Have you tried to create a bucket or something like that? You face any problems?
Uh, yeah, we just started with this actually.
Okay. So yeah. So let us continue, right? We saw what are the different storage classes. I think we stopped with that, right? We saw what is standard infrequent access, one zone infrequent access, glacier, and glacier deep archive. Okay.
Deep archive.
Yeah.
Uh,
And then we need to understand now. I told you
Kanchikur, I follow the
which storage class,
Konjam.
which storage class to use for what what use case. Right. I think I explained this also a little bit in the previous class, right? So which storage class are you going to use, right? First we'll just quickly revise that, right? So for frequently accessed data, right, if you have some data that is going to be frequently accessed, then standard is the good storage class, right? I told you frequent means not just you are manually accessing. This S3 is used for content delivery also. Like for example, I told you in the shopping site or something, right, where you have the images and videos, right, which are hosted maybe on some service like S3, and from there they are being pushed into the application, and people are indirectly accessing it, right? So for those type of things, standard will be a good option. Whereas standard infrequent is for infrequently accessed data, because you can use the content delivery as standard infrequent also, but your cost will be very high because here you pay an additional charge for data retrieval, right? Whereas standard you don't have any such fees, so it is a fixed cost, right? And it is high performance. Infrequent is also high performance, but the cost is low, right? But they have an additional cost for taking your data, for accessing your data, not just for storing, for accessing it. So if you have some data that is very frequently accessed, then standard is the good choice. Infrequent is for infrequently accessed files, like maybe some backups you store, maybe you access it once in a while, right? You have 100 files, maybe 3 4 files only you access now and then. So for those type of things, infrequent access. Then again, what is the one zone IA? One zone IA is, I told you, in one zone your data is replicated only in one zone, right? So the durability or availability is low. So you should not store any important data over here. It is like a second copy of a backup or some data that you can recreate, or you don't mind even if 1 or 2 files are lost, right? So that's what one zone IA can be used for. Glacier and Glacier Deep Archive is used for archiving. What is archiving? It is very long-term storage. So you want to store something for greater than 90 days or greater than 180 days, then you could use either Glacier or Glacier Deep Archive. And remember, when you store something in Glacier and Glacier Deep Archive, you cannot immediately access the file, right? You have to request for a restore. Then the restore will be performed. It will take a few minutes to a few hours. You have to wait, right? Wait for that. Only then you can take it out. I'm not. I think I showed you this. Let us just create a bucket quickly, right? Okay, we will come back to that, right? Glacier and all that, right? So yeah, so we have this, right? And one more thing, probably in the first class I should have told you, is this WORM. So what is WORM? It is write once, read
Read many.
read many. So S3 is useful for these type of workloads. Okay, when you put something in S3, right, or if you have some workload which will follow this pattern, right, where you upload some data, right, a couple of times maybe, but you are accessing that same thing multiple times. So for those type of things, S3 is a very good option, like storing logs, storing backups, storing static content. So all these are, you are not going to edit or modify frequently. You are going to upload them. They are going to be there. If needed, they will be accessed. Otherwise, they won't be accessed. So you will not regularly modify. You can if you want, right? If you want, you can keep modifying, but it is not the appropriate thing for that. Mostly, most of the workloads, if you see, they will follow this type of pattern where our object or objects are uploaded, then they are accessed multiple times. This object will not be modified as many times, maybe a couple of times if required, especially if it is content, right? Otherwise, mostly it will be write once, read many type, those type of applications for online storage, right? So remember, in S3 you cannot open your files and edit like Google Drive. That is not there. If you want to edit something, you have to either download the file, or if you have the file locally, you edit it and you upload the entire copy, because in S3 actions are performed on entire objects, right? Actions are performed on entire objects. You can, it will not give you partial data, all that. Okay, that's what we are going to talk about the next couple of topics, right? So I'm not sure whether you try to create a bucket, right? First is creating a bucket, the most basic thing. Okay, so how do you create a bucket? You go to S3, right? You say create bucket, because outside the bucket you can't do anything. Then you give a bucket name, right? And here is where you choose the location, right? In S3 you don't choose the location from what do you say, from here. It says it's a global service, that is, it does not require a region selection, but practically it does, right? It is called a global service. But how do you choose the region? While creating the bucket. So wherever your bucket is, it is where your data is going to sit, in that country or that region. Okay, so I will just give a bucket name called demo whatever September 5, right? Or let me just create a bucket called demo in Mumbai and say create. So what is it saying? It's saying bucket name already exists, right? So let me go and check whether I have any bucket called demo, right? You see, I have a few buckets, but there is no bucket named simply demo, right? Again, let me go back and try. I'm trying to create a bucket named demo, right? It is saying bucket name exists. Okay, I will create a bucket called backups. Again, it is saying bucket name exists. Right? It is saying you don't have any buckets with backups name. But why is it not letting me create that name? Right? Because the bucket name has to be unique. Unique not only for my account, across entire AWS, the bucket name has to be unique. That is the first rule. Right? Bucket name has to be unique across S3, not only for your user. If I use a bucket called ABCD, nobody else can use that name again. Okay, so that is the rule. You have to follow that. You cannot. It will not allow you to create a bucket if the name already has been taken by somebody else. It's not just in your account. No two buckets in AWS S3 can have the same name. So we have to choose a appropriate name, right? For example, I can say demo September 5. If it is not taken, it will let me create. If somebody has taken this name, it will not allow me to create. Okay. Right now you see it has created. Okay. So there are some rules for bucket naming. Right. I'll just quickly open the document and show you. Right. The characters have to be 3 to 64. Right. You cannot have special characters, no uppercase. Yeah. Here there are 3 or 4 rules that you have to follow. Right. Yeah. Here you have rules. Right. So the bucket names must be between 3 and 63 characters long. Right. It can contain only lowercase numbers, and only the special characters allowed are dot and hyphen. You cannot use underscore, dollar, all those you can't use. And the bucket names, they should always begin either with a number or a letter. You cannot begin a bucket name with dot or hyphen, and you cannot end it with a dot or hyphen. They can be in between. And the bucket name, it should not be formatted like an IP address. Even though they are saying you are allowed numbers and dots, if you create a bucket name something like this, it represents, it is formatted, looks like an IP address, right? That is also not allowed. Even though the top three conditions are true, if it represents, if it is formatted like an IP address, you cannot use it, right? These are the four things that you have to remember. Okay, please give me a minute, guys. Hello, Japan.
Hello?
Sorry, yeah. So these are some of the rules that you have to follow. Apart from that, they have added this one more rule that your bucket name cannot begin with xn hyphen hyphen from Feb 2020. I'm not sure for what they put this, right? I don't know what this means also, but they just say you cannot begin a bucket name with xn hyphen hyphen. And I mean, it's mostly for, I think, from programmatic point of view or something, because some people might use this in programming to represent something, right? So probably for that, right? And one more thing is, try to avoid using dot. Even though dot is allowed in a bucket name, try to avoid using dots in the bucket name. If you want to separate something, use a hyphen like how I just did, right? Try to avoid using dots as much as possible. There will be probably just one case where you might need to use dots, but for other cases, try to avoid using dots. That's what AWS also recommends. Because why these rules are there, I will show you. Okay, so here you can just see what are the valid bucket names, what are invalid buckets names. That is what they have shown. Okay, so one more thing that you have to remember is, you may see some buckets which are longer than 63 characters, which have uppercase, right? Those are buckets which are old buckets which were created in the North Virginia location. In that location earlier, the rules were slightly different. Now all regions follow these rules. From the past 3 years, all regions follow these rules. Some older buckets might be there, which your company or somebody else might have created prior to 2017, which had uppercase or which were more than 63 characters long. It was possible, now it is not possible. That is only in the North Virginia region. Now in North Virginia also, you have to follow these standard rules, right? So that's what they put a note here. Before March 2018, buckets created in US East North Virginia region could have names that were up to 255 characters and included uppercase and underscores. So if you see anything like that, it is still a valid bucket which was probably created a long back. You can still continue to use them, but now if you try to create, it will not allow you. Okay, right?
Okay.
So you will have, why all these rules, we will come to that. Why are these rules there? Okay, we will come to that. Okay, then the next thing is, whenever you put anything in a bucket, right, your object, it will have a URL. The object will have a URL, whether you like it or no. Every object in a S3 bucket will have a URL. So let us quickly do that. Let us go and upload an object, right? You can just upload small files. You don't have to upload any big files or anything, right? Small text, small image files you can do, right? So I'm uploading this file. You don't worry about any permissions properties for now. We will see this as we go. First, you just choose some file and you say upload. right? So inside the bucket, your object's names can be whatever it is, right? Only the bucket name has to be unique. Okay. Now I uploaded an object. If I click on that, the object has some properties. Key is nothing but the object name. Then it has a size, when it was created, right? All that stuff. What is its storage class? Whether it's encryption is enabled, all that stuff, right? But you see, it has object URL. So let me just copy that, right? So every object will have a URL. This is what you can. If it is an image, you can embed it in your application, right? Your developers can embed it. They can take this URL, they can put it. They will see this image. If you need to update this image, you just need to update in this single location. Just need to modify the image, upload it back here. Wherever this link has been called, it will change automatically, right? So they don't need to save multiple copies of the files in different servers and all that things. In a single place, they can store these images, videos, some static content, right? Static content is what? Content which is not going to change over a long period of time. Mostly it will be same, right? Okay, so a lot of the shopping sites, right? Not only shopping sites, most of the websites these days, if they have any pictures or those type of things, right, they store it in a service like this, right? Okay, so here is the object URL. So what is there in the URL, right? So what is this URL, right? Again, I told you it is used if you are just simply uploading and downloading the files, you may not need to use the URL, but in practical use, right, S3 is used for content delivery, those type of things. So you need the URL. It is there, whether you like it or no, it is there. So if you look at the URL, right, by looking at the URL or by looking at the object, I can create the URL myself, right? So if you look at the URL, the first part here is the bucket name, right? This is the bucket name. The second part, S3, that is the region, right? This S3 dot AP South is there, right? It is the region where the bucket is. It is in Mumbai. Then you have Amazon AWS.com. This is common. Then you have the object name. This is the syntax. This is the format for anything, right? So let me take another object from a different bucket.
So object, I mean, indirectly it's a key, right? Basically.
Key means it's the object's name. That's all. If they say key means
Yeah.
you refer to the object name. Object name is the key. That's all. Let us see if I have any. Okay, here I have. Yeah, I just created this, I think, right? In Asia Pacific. Let me go to some other region bucket. I'm just seeing. Yeah, we are in US East. So here also, array, nothing is there in this. That is my data map. Okay, we'll go to this US East, North Virginia. Okay, here some files are there. Okay, so if you look at this particular object, right, it also has a link, right? So here you have the bucket name, right? This is the bucket name. Then you have the region. It simply says S3 here. Here it says S3 dot AP-South1, but here it simply says S3. If it simply says S3, it means it is the North Virginia region. Only for the US East one, North Virginia, it will say S3. For all other regions, it will give its region code. Okay. So if you see S3 dot, it means this bucket is in North Virginia. That's how it is represented for North Virginia, because S3 started off here. It had some special privileges, like I said, underscore, uppercase, 255 characters, all that were allowed. So North Virginia is simply represented as S3 in the URL, right? So if you look at the URL and they ask you where is this bucket located, the interview or exam, you should be able to say, by looking at the URL, you should be able to tell what is the bucket name, where is it located, and what is the object name. The rest of it is same, AmazonaWS.com/object name, right? The region alone will either be S3 or S3 dot AP hyphen or whatever the region is. Here we are using Mumbai region, so it is AP hyphen South. So if you are using Australia, it might be AP hyphen something, right? So that's how the URL is. Okay. Okay. So the URL can be in two formats. So now maybe you understand why the bucket name has to be unique, right? Because this URL has to be unique. Because you also might have a file called aws.png. I cannot control that. Your object name and my object names may be same. But how will this URL be unique? Right? Because when you're using it in programming, when you're going to embed the links, if I also have the bucket name called demosep5 and aws.png object, both our URLs will be the same. You cannot change the URL. That URL is given automatically in this format. Right? So for this URL to be unique, the bucket name has to be unique. Okay, that's how AWS controls it. That is the reason the bucket name has to be unique across entire S3. No two people are allowed to create a same bucket name. Even you cannot have two buckets with the same name, right? So if somebody has used the name, you cannot use it. If they remove the bucket, then that name becomes available. Okay, you can try to use, but it is not like domain value by the bucket names. At present, it is not possible. Maybe in future they will create, because in some cases you might need a specific bucket name for some certain purposes. Now you cannot book the bucket name, or you cannot pay for it. If you need it, you just create and keep it empty. Suppose for you some name is important, right? You just check whether it is available. If it is available, just create and keep it. It can be empty because there is no cost for bucket, right? So if the name is not there, it is not there, it is taken. We have to add some extra characters or hyphen something or something like that, right? So the reason why the bucket name has to be unique is because of this URL has to be unique. And the same thing for numbers. I told you bucket name cannot be something like 192.168.1.1, because if you put that over here, the meaning of this URL is going to change. It will not be interpreted properly by your browser or programming, right? So that is the reason they don't allow you to use something that represents, that is formatted like an IP address, right? So I hope now it is clear that naming convention, some of the things, right? Again, special characters and all that thing, right? It will break the URL if you put dollar underscores and all that, right? Then it might cause problems. So they only allow a dot and a hyphen. And then again, why are they saying don't use dot? Because if you have a dot in the bucket name, then again, what happens when you use this format? This demo hyphen sep5 will become demo dot sep5. Then the meaning of the URL again will change, right? It becomes like a domain subdomain, right? So again, to avoid that, they say don't use a dot, use a hyphen. That is better.
See, Sid, once again, see, it's understood that whatever comes before S3, right? Prefix of S3 is a bucket, correct?
Yes.
So even though if you put a demo dot, I mean, I'm just asking, okay, demo dot sep5 dot S3. So can't it recognize that, I mean, demo dot sep5 as a bucket?
No. See, this is not just S3 recognizing. Your browser, all those have to recognize, right?
Ah, correct. That's it. Ah, okay,
When
okay.
you say demo dot sep dot S3 dot Amazon AWS.com, then here what is the domain? Amazon AWS.com is the domain. S3 is the
Mhm.
subdomain. SEP will also
Yeah,
become
yeah.
subdomain. Demo will also become subdomain. So to avoid all the
Okay, okay.
confusion, you can put a dot. If you put a dot, there is a different way of representing it. So you have to do a workaround. You cannot represent like this, the
Okay.
default way. It will cause problems for the developers. They have to use another format. There is another format also, because some people will use they know.
Okay.
So they have given another way to represent a thing, right? So this is the standard what
Okay.
AWS gives you. This is called the virtual hosted style. This is called the virtual hosted style path, right? When you represent your object like this, which is what AWS gives you by default when you look at it, this is called the virtual hosted style. Then you have so in the virtual hosted style, the bucket name is part of the domain, right? Is this part of the domain name in the URL? The other thing is path style URL. Path style URL. The same object, now can be represented as, right, the same object I can represent as, sorry, S3 AP south1 dot Amazon AWS.com slash the bucket name slash the object name. Both mean the same. Okay. So now here the bucket name is not part of the domain. So now maybe you can use dot. You can use dot hyphen. Both will work. Okay. So to avoid the total confusion, because some developers might put like this, some people might use like this. So we don't know. So why, to avoid confusion in future, try to avoid using dot. Right. So the same object can be represented like this also. This is called the virtual hosted style, which is what a lot of people use. Alternately, you can represent it as a path style URL where the bucket name is part of the path. Everything else is the same.
Okay.
Okay, the bucket name will come over here in the path style URL. It will come in the path. The virtual hosted style, the bucket name is part of the domain itself. Okay, so these are the two ways in which your bucket can be accessed programmatically. That is when your developers are embedding or something, they have to be aware of this. We should also be aware of this. Either we should tell them, or if they know it, well and good. So to avoid that confusion, don't use dot in the bucket name. There will be just one or two cases where you may have to use dot. I will tell you where that is. But otherwise 90%, 99% don't use dot. Okay. Right. Okay, next quickly we have another what do you say, high level topic which you have to understand. It is called the data consistency model. Data consistency model. You can say S3 data consistency model, right? I will just open it in the documentation, right, so that I'll show, so that you know where to find the answer. S3 data consistency model. Yeah, you can just search for data consistency model, right? So I'm going to explain this. What is this data consistency model? Then you can just go through this, right? So let me just explain in a easy way, right? So what is data consistency model? So the first thing you have to remember is, right, don't practice this with the mindset of practicing, right? You should think like in the real time how they are working, what is happening in the real time, right? So like I said, S3 is used for content delivery. A lot of files are going to be stored and being accessed parallelly, right? I think I showed you this example of opening some shopping site and showing you. Did I show it? I think in the beginning class I showed you, the previous class.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Last, I think,
Yeah.
yeah, sure.
So when you go to some object, right? I mean, something over here. I don't want to go mobile research. So here, what is happening? If I click on some product, right? So there are hundreds or millions of people accessing this at the same time, not just me, right? There might be hundreds or thousands of people who are looking at this page currently. That is, they're actually accessing this object is being served to them. This is coming from S3, right? This is coming from S3, these images. If you look at the image address I showed you, it will give you some URL, right? So all these images are stored in one place and they will be served. So this same image is also there on the home page, right? So they are not storing different copies of that. It is the same image which is being shown in different parts of the page, right? And if they have to update this image, suppose they made some mistake, right, in this picture, instead of writing something they wrote something else, they want to do Photoshop, they just need to edit this image in a single place and upload it back to the same place, and it will reflect wherever this image has been called. Who is going to call this image? Your developer in his coding, right? So it is not just we are manually accessing the files. So like this, through content, there will be hundreds of people who are accessing those objects in real time, depending upon your use case. So we should think like that. So in those cases, right, we have, even without that case, S3 follows a data consistency model. So what S3 says is, right, what S3 says is updates to a single key are atomic, right? What this means is it will never give you partial or corrupt data. You will never get partial or corrupt data. Either you will see something or you will not see anything, right? So there are these are what you will see, right? When you upload an object, right, there are different behavior. We will see that. So you will either see no data, or you will see old data, or you will see new data, but you will not see partial or corrupt data. That will never happen in S3. Okay, so what does this mean? Okay, so there are different possibilities here now, right? We just uploaded a single file, right? We have a bucket, right? Now the bucket is we have an object. So currently, if that object is not there in the bucket, that means it is a new object, correct? If this object, it does not exist in the bucket, then this is a new object. So the first thing is you are uploading a new object. So we call that put or post. So all these are called HTTP verbs, right, or HTTP methods, right? Even though we say upload, download, this is what technically happens in the background programmatically. Put, post, you might have heard of this, right? Get or list, delete, all these are, what do you say, HTTP verbs, right? So in the documentation, you will see these kind of things, right? Put or post generally refers to uploading or overwriting. Get is generally for downloading. List means you are just seeing what are the files that are there. Delete means delete, right? Because AWS is all API driven. Okay, so when you are uploading an object, that is when you are putting a new object. This is a new object because it is not there, right? And now assume that parallelly people are accessing that object even before you put it. Now let us say your developer, he gave you an image and he said you upload to S3. So he knows the URL. How he knows the URL? Because he knows the bucket name and the object name. He can create the URL by himself. You don't have to give him the URL. So what he is doing, he is embedding the URL in the page and he has made the page live. He has given the image to you. You have not yet uploaded it to S3, right? He has embedded the URL in his page because he knows the URL and he has made the page live. But the image still you have not uploaded to S3. You have just taken the image and you have gone for T. You have not yet uploaded to S3. Then what happens? So there are people or other applications or services which are continually trying to access that object. So in their page, what they will see? They will not see anything because that object is not there, right? Here it will show a blank, right? Wherever they have embedded it, it might show a blank, right? I hope you get the idea, right? Here they will not see anything. It will be blank because you have not yet uploaded the image, but the developer has already embedded the URL and he has made the page live. So here they will not see anything, right? Now say you come back and you upload. So these people are still accessing. They are not going to stop accessing. If this guy goes, some other guy is accessing. So parallelly people are accessing. We just have to remember that, right? So in those cases, what happens? They don't see any data. What we are doing, we are put new object. So we have not yet put, so they are not seeing any data. Now say you are putting the data, you are uploading the file. So when you are uploading the file, it will take some time, right? So to upload this image, it might take 30 seconds or something. So during that time, what they will see? When the upload is happening, what they will see? Still they will not see anything because S3 will not give you partial data or corrupt data. When somebody is trying to access the object as you are uploading, still they will not see anything. Once the upload is completed, right, then they will start seeing the data. Once the upload is completed, then they will start seeing the data, right? So we call this as read after write consistency. For puts of new objects, that is, they can read only after the write is complete. Okay, they can read, that is, they can access the object only after the upload is complete. Okay, now there are other behaviors also. What if I overwrite? What if I delete? Right, what if I, now we saw for new writes, right? Sorry. Okay, now let us say we already have the object here and people are accessing it, right? Now let us say again you are putting the same object, then what will happen? Right, what is the default behavior? It is going to override this object, right? If you have an object and you are again what do you say, uploading the object, what is the default behavior? Now I have aws.png. You see it was created at September 5th
So it will
2020.
create a version, right?
Sorry,
It will create a version, right? Version.
no, default it will not. That is the next topic we'll see. By default there is no versioning enabled. Okay,
Hmm.
so this object was created at 8/16/53. Now if I upload the same file again, remember AWS, it does not look what is inside the file. That file inside might be same or inside might be different, it does not care. If the file name is the same, it will overwrite. The key, that is key, is the same, then you see it will overwrite. Now it is 839, the old one is gone. Okay, it will overwrite. That is the default behavior. So now when you are doing something like this, when you are overwriting, then what will happen? And people are accessing, the old file is there, I mean the file is there, they are accessing it. Now you are updating it. Now say it is some image in Amazon which you needed to edit, maybe you needed to edit this picture, but people are still accessing this page parallelly, right? One person is opening, one person has already opened, one person is refreshing, like that there will be many cases. So when you say, instead of saying pack of 4, you need to change to pack of 3. So you will edit that image and then you will upload it again into the same bucket with the same name, so that the coding does not have to change, right? You will change it to pack of 3, then you will upload it. Then what happens? So in those cases what happens is, when you overwrite an object or when you update an object, right, then the behavior that people will see is, right, some people might see the old data, some people might see the new data, right? Eventually everyone will see new data, right? So when you upload this file, when you overwrite this file, right, for a few people still the old picture will show, for some people new picture will show, but eventually, say after a minute or so, for everybody it will show the new picture. Why this happens is because I told you we saw the different storage classes, right? So the storage class, what is happening in the background, they are replicating your data, right? Let us say 3 copies they are keeping, right? They say at least 3 availability zones. So it might be 3 copies or 6 copies, right? 2 in each availability zone, we don't know. So there are multiple copies in the background. Even though you are uploading one file, in the background S3 has to replicate it. So when you overwrite something, right, it has to overwrite these copies also. Say there are 6 copies in backup replication that S3 does automatically, then it has to overwrite all these also. So that thing might take a few seconds or a few minutes. It depends. We cannot really show you that. But it might happen. You might notice this behavior. Some people, I'm still seeing the old file, means just wait for a minute, then refresh and check again. Because until it completes updating all the backup copies, for a few people, they might still see the old file, because the files might come from here also. For us, it is just we are seeing one file in the bucket. But practically what it is, there are multiple copies of this file in the backend. That is where, from where it is being served to you, right? So when like this hundreds of people are accessing, a few people might see the old data, few people might see the new data, but eventually once it completes what do you say, updating the, what do you say, the replication in the background, everybody will see the new data. So this is called eventual consistency. But nobody will get partial data or corrupt data. They will either see old data or they will see new data, but eventually everybody will see new data, right? This is for overwrites of objects, right? Okay, so you will notice these types of behavior. Same thing when you're uploading an object and immediately people are accessing, maybe for a few seconds they might not be able to see the object, but eventually they will see, right? That is read after write. But when you're overwriting an existing object, so some people will get old data, some people will get new data, right? Same thing with deletes. If you delete an object when somebody is accessing it, right, so parallelly they're accessing, so every second or something, let us say they're accessing, right? So until all these copies are also removed, right, still some people might see the data for a few seconds, right? So that is applicable even for delete. So if you remove this object from the bucket, when multiple people are accessing it, right, it's not just people, there will be other applications or something that will try to pull data from this, right? So if you remove this, maybe for the next few seconds, still a few people might be able to see the data, but eventually it will not be there. Eventually means it's in a few seconds. This we cannot make it happen. It has to happen in the background, right? I cannot show you this happening, but this behavior is possible. Why such a behavior happens? Because of this replication, because it has to propagate the changes across multiple copies. For us it is one file, but practically in the background it is multiple. So they define this so that you are not unaware. Okay, you should not say still I'm seeing the old file. You will see, you just have to wait for a few seconds. It is not like it will take 1 hour or 2 hours for the replication to happen. It is hardly a few seconds mostly. Okay, so that is called the data consistency model. Just you can read about that here. Same thing what I explained is given over here. What is the behavior that you see, right? This is again mostly for developers. You need to know, don't need to go so deep, just the first section of it, whatever I explained, right? Okay, right, that is the data consistency model for S3, right? Okay, so now we will go into some of the other stuff in S3, right? Core practical stuff what we are going to use, what are its other features. Okay, okay, first let me quickly talk about encryption. Okay, it is say under the security topic, right? This is just high level, you need to know, right? Encryption, right? Let us say it comes under security, right? Because security we have a separate class, so we will talk about security over there, but just in high level security in AWS, sorry, in S3, not in AWS, because security depends on service to service. So first thing is all your buckets are private. All new buckets are private. Right, and when you upload any objects, they will also be private normally, unless you change the permission. Right, so for while practicing, you don't have to worry. Right, nobody can, even if they have the URL, nobody can do anything. URL, they cannot do anything unless you give permission. Right, so if you see, I have this URL for this object, I have the URL. If I know the bucket name or something, or even if I give you this URL, you can't do anything. If you open it, it will say access denied. Even if you are logged into AWS, you access that object through its URL, it will say access denied, because this object can be accessed over the internet. You don't need an S3 account, AWS account, you don't need. Right, but it will say access denied because I have not given permission to it. It is private by default. Okay, so with the URL, you cannot do anything unless they have given the permission. If I change its permission to read only or give permission to download, then you can access it with the URL. You don't need to log into S3. Right, so by default, everything is private. Right, we will see how to change the permissions and all that in the security class. Right, the second thing is you can enable logging. This also we will see. You can enable logging. Logging means what is happening to the objects in the bucket. If you want to know, these are all additional. Right, who uploaded the file, who deleted, what happened in that bucket. Right, you can enable logging. It is called a server access logging. Right, you have an option in S3, you can enable that, and you can store the logs in another bucket. Right, you can enable access logging for your buckets, for each bucket. Right, and then the important thing is you can control access, right, using two methods. One is bucket policy, or some people use IAM policy, and then you have access control list. So nobody really uses access control list anymore. It is a legacy feature, right, but it is still available. But practically people don't use access control list. Mostly we are going to use bucket policy and IAM policies to control access to the buckets and objects. So who can access which bucket, or who can access which object, you can control all that. So you can control who can upload. So basically, what are the operations you are doing on an object? One, you can upload, right? One, you can download. One, you can delete. One, you can overwrite. So each of these individually also you can control. You don't have to give a person full access to the entire bucket. You can say X is allowed only to upload. So he will not be able to download even the file that he uploaded. Okay, like that you can control. Right, if X needs to upload, you have to give him only upload permission, not download permission. Even if it is the file he uploaded, he will not be able to download. Right, so like that you can control the permissions granularly, right, using IAM policies or bucket policies. We will see this in the security class, but I'm just telling with S3 what are the options you have, because we will just now quickly talk about encryption. Right, encryption is also another, what you say, you can say security feature. Right, in these things, certain things you have to do. Right, by default it keeps your buckets private. That it does. If you make it public and you lose your data, that is your headache. That is not AWS's responsibility. Right, the other things, if we want, we have to do. They have given you option. You can enable logging if you want to find out. If you don't enable, you cannot find out. Right, same thing. If you want to control permissions for your buckets, instead of giving everybody full access, you have to use the access control mechanisms to do that. And same thing, if you want to keep your data even more safer, you can enable encryption. Right, so we'll quickly talk about encryption. Again, this is a security specialty, but we should know what is this encryption, because it is used with a lot of other AWS services also, not only for S3, for other storage related stuff, and it is also used. Right, in general, what is encryption means? You are trying to hide something. Right, suppose we might have heard of SSL certificate, right, for your websites, HTTPS, you will see. Right, so basically what is this SSL certificate doing? Any idea? Right, So what is this SSL certificate actually doing? So you are accessing some website, say Amazon.in. So if I open Amazon.in, you will see HTTPS, right? You will see this lock icon, right? It has a SSL certificate. So what is this SSL certificate actually doing, right? It is encrypting the connection between you and Amazon. That's all it is doing. It is not encrypting anything on your machine, or it is not encrypting anything on Amazon side. It is just encrypting this connection. So when you're uh, sending your ID and password, it is going over the internet, right? It is going to Amazon. So while it is going, it is encrypted so that nobody can intercept it. I mean, if they intercept also, they cannot see. It will not be in plain text, right? Sniffing, all that will not. That's what basically your SSL is doing. It is just encrypting the connection between you and whatever you are opening, right? So it is also encryption. So what encryption we are talking about is, say for example, you have your laptop, right? So how do you secure your laptop? You have some ID and password, right? Your company is giving you a laptop, they give you an ID, a password, or you have your personal laptop, you have ID, password. Maybe for you have ID, password. For your kid you have an ID, password, right? So it is a form of security. So if they need to access your laptop, they need the ID and password. All this is for legally allowed people. That is, you are saying here you can use, take my laptop and use, you are giving ID, password. But what if your laptop gets stolen? Then the thief, he does not need your ID, password. He can simply what do you say, take the hard drive and access your data. Let us say you have some important data in your laptop. You are putting ID, password and keeping. Okay, ID, password will work as long as you own the laptop. Once the laptop gets lost, that person does not need ID, password. He will just open the hard drive, open the laptop, take the hard drive, he will connect it external, he will get the data. He does not care about login and your software, right? So how do you protect it from that? You don't want your data to go into wrong hands. Okay, if you lose the data also fine, but I don't want other people to get it. So then what you can do, you can encrypt. Like for example, in Windows 10 you have BitLocker. So it will encrypt your drive. So without your login credentials, it encrypts with your login credentials, right? If you enable BitLocker, right? So it encrypts your hard drive. So even if people steal your laptop, if they don't have the ID, password, they can't log in. When you are logging in, it is actually decrypting on the fly. So if they cannot log in, they will remove the hard drive and try to connect. They will not be able to access the data because it is encrypted. They have to format and use the hard drive. That's all. Your data is not compromised, right? So same thing applies. So what is this? We call this encryption at rest. Encryption at rest. That is, when your data is stored in the hard drive, when it is sitting, it is encrypted. What was the first thing? SSL certificate. That is encryption in transit. That is, while your data is moving from you to some website, in transit it is encrypted. It will be decrypted over here with their SSL certificate or whatever, right? So this is encryption in transit. When you store something on a storage medium and it is encrypted, that is encryption at rest. Okay. So in S3 also same thing. You can do encryption. S3 is what? Storage, right? So by default, all your objects are private. Nobody can access. But what if somebody steals the hard drive at AWS? Or the drive gets misplaced, or because they keep updating the drives, right? They keep replacing hard drives and things. You may not see that. Actually, they format the drives whenever they do it. But as an additional level of protection to prevent, to limit, what do you say, hackers and those type of things, right? You can encrypt your data in S3 also. It is a storage service, so you can encrypt. There are two things. One is again encryption in transit. So for this, you don't need to do anything. It's automatically encrypted in transit. So when you're transferring any data into or out of S3, right, it is already encrypted using SSL TLS. That is your SSL certificate. This you don't need to do anything. This is there by default. When you're moving data into or out of S3, in transit it is already protected, it is already encrypted. What we need to do is, if you want to, you can encrypt it at rest, right? Or it is also called server side encryption, or SSE. All mean the same: encryption at rest, or uh, server side encryption, or SSE, right? So this is after the object is uploaded to S3, right? When it is stored there, it will be encrypted. So to do encryption anywhere, you need keys, right? That encryption is performed using a key or one or more keys, right? You might have different key for different things, right? If you have a bucket, for one bucket you can encrypt with one key, another bucket with another key, that is up to you. But encryption is performed using keys, right? So now here, what are the options you have, right? So Amazon is going to help you do the encryption. You just have to choose what you want, what type of encryption you want, or how you want to handle the key, right? So basically there are what do you say, S3 managed keys, right? For server side encryption you have S3 managed keys, right? You have what do you say, one thing called SSE, server side encryption, AES. This is the default, right? That is, S3 handles the key. That is, they already have a key in your account. By default there will be an encryption key with the AES 56 algorithm, 256 algorithm. This is the key, this is already there. Or you can bring your own keys, or you can use this service called KMS, key management service. It is a separate service in AWS, right? If you go here, KMS, key management service. So here you can store your encryption keys, and you can use it with other AWS services and outside AWS also. So it is a key store, right? So you can create your keys, or you can already, if you have a key, you can bring it, right? Okay, you can bring your, you can create your key, or AWS provides certain keys, right? Okay, it is a separate service, so you can manage your keys from there, AWS key management service, right? So KMS is going to manage the keys, right? The KMS service manages the keys. And then you have customer provided keys, SSE C. So if you already have a key, because it is not that only in S3 or AWS you can create keys, outside also you can create keys, or you already might have your own encryption keys, you can bring them and you can use them, right? This is customer provided. You bring it, you upload it to KMS. All these are server side encryption. That is, the encryption happens at the S3 end. You specify whatever key you want, and it will do the encryption. You don't do anything else, you just specify the key, what type you want, right? All these are server side encryption. The last one is client side encryption. What is client side encryption? It is, you are encrypting the file and then uploading it. You are encrypting, then uploading it. So you are doing it at your end, you are not doing any encryption at S3. So S3 or AWS, it does not handle your encryption. You are encrypting the file at your end using some tool or something, right? You have tools that will do encryption on your Windows machine or Linux machine or whatever. You can download some encryption software, you can encrypt your file and then upload. Think of it as something as, say you are uploading something to Google Drive. So you will maybe say you will what you will do, you will compress it as a zip file, and maybe you will put a password for it. So I can download the file, but I need the password to open it. Like a Word file or Excel file, you can protect it with a password, right? That's not actually encryption, but I hope you get the idea, right? So we are doing that encryption and then we are uploading. It has nothing to do with, S3 is not doing any encryption related stuff. You have to decrypt it yourself. You have to download the file and decrypt. right? So even if somebody hacks or they get hold of the physical drives at the back end or something, your data is still safe. That is, it does not go into the wrong hands. So in some projects, right, encryption might be compulsory, right? So they will say data has to be encrypted using so and so key, right, or so and so strength, so and so algorithm. So you have to use that appropriate key to encrypt. So how to do that? It is not a big deal, right? When you're uploading the file itself, you have an option. When you're uploading a file, right, when you go to the next step, right, don't worry about the permissions. Next, when you go to properties, we have the storage class. Now if you scroll down, you have encryption, right? That is data at rest. Protect data at rest by using S3 master key or using KMS, right? By default it is not encrypted. You can use the S3 master key or you can use KMS. It will have one key, or you can what do you say, you can specify what do you say, we'll not go into KMS in detail, but if you have any other key, it will show you over here. Or if you want to
So Siddharth,
connect to another KMS service, you can.
I have a query here.
Yeah.
So when you specify this encryption, okay, say I'm doing the encryption only for one object, okay.
Yeah.
So does it applicable for other objects in the same region?
No. You have to do it. You can enable for the entire bucket if you want to, for all buckets. This is for
Okay.
so you can do for the entire bucket or only for specific objects. That is up to you. This now
Okay.
this applies only to the specific object. This applies only for this object that I am doing. For this other one is not encrypted. Here, if you see encryption, it says 256 for this object. Right? For this object, there is no encryption. Right? If you want to do it for the entire bucket, you want to enable encryption, then you can say default encryption. Right? Automatically encrypt objects when stored in S3. Which one do you want to use? AES or KMS? Right? In KMS, you can load your keys, or I think by default there will be a key for S3. Yeah, you can use that, or you don't want to use that, you can bring your own key, put it in KMS, it will show here. So now everything you put in this bucket will be encrypted. So that's what people usually do. They are not going to encrypt one by one object. They will enable encryption for the entire bucket. Each bucket might have a different key, but yeah, that's how it is done. I'm sure I showed you just if you're uploading an individual object, how to encrypt it. If you want for everything, you do it at the bucket level. Okay. This is encryption at rest. Now this is when it is stored in S3, it is encrypted, but you can access it normally. You can go and say download, it is going to download. Okay. It will decrypt and download. You don't have to do any decryption or any such thing. It happens on the fly. Okay.
Still, I have a question about this encryption thing.
Yeah.
So, as I said, we have two options. One is like through KMS, and second one is like built in S3 encryption.
Yeah, S3
So,
itself has a.
if it is a
Yeah.
if it is a KMS, which means it is a separate service called the key management system is available as part of the AWS. We have to create our own key, right?
Yes.
So in that case, like if I, for example, I have uploaded the file, I have a key called X. Using that key, I have uploaded that file. Okay, some of the files in S3. Later, I have changed that X key with a different information. Like so, in the case, when I access the file which is already uploaded, will it be decrypt or any like?
No, I didn't understand. So you're saying I will remove the key?
Not remove after, for example, like as per key, I mean the key rotation policy. Generally, all the companies following like password expiry, we have to follow some standards, right? Every 15 days or 45 days, like that.
Okay.
They are changing.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. We will talk about that in security, because I don't want to go into that security thing too much now.
Oh. Okay.
So we will see that when we come to KMS, how to manage your keys and those kind of things, right? So what happens?
Yeah, here my question is, if I updating the existing key, will it be impact our existing S3 object or not? Because I uploaded the data through the existing key only.
Okay. You try and you let me know what is happening.
Okay.
Okay. I don't have another key now, right? You try and you
Okay.
let me know tomorrow itself what is happening.
Okay.
Whether we can do that first of all, is it possible to do? And if it is possible to do, then what is happening?
Okay.
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 Right. So yeah. So this is just the basic of encryption, because this KMS is used for other services also, like you said, key rotation, all that. It affects the other services like EBS, RDS, right? There are many other services that use this what do you say, encryption, which can be managed from here, KMS, right? Now, yeah. What was the next topic? Um, yeah. What we'll do is we will just talk about one small topic now.
So that you told about client-side encryption, right?
Yes.
So this AWS, KMS, and
They are all server-side encryption.
yes, so, and yeah, server-side encryption, and client-side encryption is
What we are doing, suppose now on my laptop, like I said, if I'm uploading some file to Google Drive, I will put a password for it and upload. That means what? I am
okay. Okay.
encrypting it and uploading on my laptop. You can use some third-party tools or whatever it is. There are what do you say?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You can search for
Yeah.
AX script
Yeah.
or
Yeah. One
something,
second.
right? CRYPT. There might be different ways in which you can encrypt, right? So, here you have AX script is a file encryption service for Windows. So if you have some file, I can encrypt using this tool, and then I can upload to S3. So the keys you have, that is like a password or something you give, your data is encrypted. So without that, they cannot decrypt. So S3 is not doing anything. S3 is just storing what you give. It is not doing encryption or decryption. If you use SSE, that means S3 is actually doing the encryption and decryption. Here you are encrypting it and then putting it online, right? So at rest, it is still encrypted. How it is encrypted? Either by S3 itself, or you are encrypting and then putting. That's all, right? We call that client side. Client side means you are encrypting the file and then uploading it. That is in your control. S3 cannot do anything about that. Okay, right? Okay, guys. Okay, so next we will just quickly we will take a break, but before that, I just want to talk about this small service. We will not practically use it. I mean, I cannot show you the demo, but you should know that there is a service like this, right? Can you see my screen, guys? Okay, so they have a service called Snowball, right? So this is again a simple example. Is, let us say uh, you have some 200 GB of movies, right? Movies and songs, and I want that. I want the 200 GB of movies. So how can I take it from you, right?
Have my hard disk,
Yeah,
or you can provide.
yeah. Or what is the other way? So suppose say I want your profile. You're applying for a job. I want your profile. Then what you will do? You will email it to me, right? But if it is a lot of data, maybe you can upload to Google Drive, and I will download it. But practically, that is a headache, because you have to upload, then I have to download. It will take more time, and you can't put it via email because it is very big. If it is small, you can send via email. So what we will do, like you said, we will use an external hard drive or a pen drive. So you will put it on your hard drive, you will give it to me, I will copy it, and I will give your hard drive back to you, right? This is going to be the faster and easier way. We don't have to wait for upload, download, internet connection, all that stuff, right? So for you to upload it into the hard drive, maybe it will take you 1 hour. For you to give the hard drive to me 1 hour, for me to copy it maybe one day, and next day I give it back to you. So in 2 days, we have transferred 200 GB amongst us without spending much money, right? Now same concept for S3. S3. So if you want to send large amounts of data to S3 or out of S3, how can you do it? Right? You have S3. So what do you do in S3? You store or you retrieve data. That's what basically you do. So say you are doing some migration. You have say 50 TB of data that you want to migrate into S3. So how can you do that? Okay, you will open your computer, you will connect to S3, you will upload. So how long it will take to upload 50 TB? It depends upon your bandwidth. Say your office has 50 Mbps, right, or 150 Mbps, but other people are also using. So maybe the available bandwidth for you is only 100 on an average. So maybe on 100 Mbps you are uploading. Then how long it will take to upload 50 TB? Right? Maybe you are doing every day 1 TB. Then it might take you 50 days. Assuming that there is no interruption in between, everything is going smoothly. Now, if your internet line gets cut, then you have to wait. Or if there is an interruption, again you have to resume whenever the interruption finishes. So for that only we have these tools called rclone and all that. Instead of using the console, when you're uploading a lot of files in parallel, right, you can use these type of tools. But still, 50 TB is too much. So what if it is 1 TB? 1 TB maybe you can do. Maybe it will take you a day or two, fine. Right? So how do you do this? Same thing. If you have 100 TB of data already stored in S3, you want to take it out. You want to come out of S3. Then how can you take it out? You can sit and download it, like how we do, right? You can choose all the objects and download. So how long it is going to take to download 100 TB? Again, maybe 100 days, depending upon your bandwidth and interruptions, right? So how can you speed this up? Right? So now AWS has got a solution for that also. Now means it has been there for 4 or 5 years now, right? We call it the Snow family, right? And now they call it the Snow family, right? Because a product has been removed recently, just in April, right? They call it the Snow family. So what AWS provides you is a physical device. This is called a Snowball. Now Snowball is no longer there. See, earlier means until few months ago, until 3-4 months ago, you had 3 options: Snowball, Snowball Edge, and Snowmobile. Now what they have done is they have removed Snowball and they have replaced it with something called Snow Cone. Okay, but still I will use the word Snowball because I'm used to it. But Snowball as such is no longer available. Right now it is Snow Cone. But in the documentation, you will still see it referred in many places as Snowball. Now they have Snowball Edge, Snowmobile, and Snow Cone. So what are these 3 things? These are basically, forget about Snowmobile. This we will come. This is it is like a joke. Okay. So yeah. So we have Snow Cone, Snowball Edge. So first we will talk about this thing. So these are basically storage boxes. Right? They come in different capacities. Snowball Edge, I think it comes in 80 TB and I think 100 TB capacities. Snow Cone comes in 8 TB capacities. Earlier Snowball used to be there. Snowball used to come in again 80 and 100 TB. The difference, so these boxes have some capacity. It is like a hard drive that AWS is giving you. Right? I will just say SB, Snowball. Right? So this is like a device that AWS gives you, which has some amount of storage. Okay, so they ship it to your location. It comes to your location, to your office or home, right? Then you connect this box to your network. You install a small client called a Snowball client, and you transfer the data. So it will be faster. It is like me taking your USB drive and copying data, right? So same thing here. AWS is shipping you this. You connect it to your infrastructure, and you transfer the data, and you ship it back to AWS. They will connect it and upload it to your S3. Right? So to do this, say if you have 50 TB of data, so first you request for a Snowball. right? So they will prepare that snowball and they will ship it to you. Maybe it takes 3 days to ship. Then you can keep it at your location for 10 days. It is included in the price. 10 days is included, up to 10 days. If you want more than 10 days, you have to pay for it extra. Say you are able to transfer the data in 5 days into the snowball. Then you ship it back to AWS. Maybe it takes 3 days to go back to AWS. They connect it and maybe it takes 2 days for them to transfer. So probably in 1 week or 2 weeks, you are able to transfer 50 TB without any problems, right? Without any dependency on bandwidth and all that stuff, right?
Yes.
So how does that look? So I cannot order that because it starts from $300. Okay, so you can just go to YouTube or somewhere and you can see, right? So one more thing is, earlier there were 3 categories. I mean, 2 main categories: snowball and snowball edge. What was the difference between these two? Was snowball was only storage, whereas snowball edge was storage plus some compute. That is, using snowball edge, you could execute some scripts or do some processing on the storage if you want to. These are mostly used in remote locations where they don't have a traditional data center or internet connection, or they cannot keep a traditional computer, right? In remote locations like forests, in or in aeroplanes, or what do you say, windmill areas, army, right, deployment, where they want to collect and store some data and maybe do some small analysis on that, right? Snowball edge is usually storage plus CPU. Snowball is only storage. Now snowball is no longer there. Now in snowball edge itself, you have different options: storage plus CPU, storage plus CPU plus GPU, if you want to do some graphic related processing, right? So how do they look, right? So it looks like a big suitcase. It is not like your small hard drive, right? Sorry, snowball means it is showing that we have to put AWS snowball, right? So here is the snowball or snowball edge. It looks like this. Okay, let me show. Yeah, this should be better. Okay, so this is how a snowball looks. Okay, so it is a very heavy big box, like a suitcase, right? It has all these features. So earlier what the option was you could actually ship your own hard drives to AWS, because we tried doing that once long ago in 2013 or something, right? If you want to migrate, you have a lot of data, you want to migrate to AWS, right? You can actually physically ship your hard drives to AWS. They will connect and transfer the data, but the problem is the drives might get damaged in shipping, either while going to AWS or while coming back to you. They might get lost. So all that is a headache. So to avoid that, right, they launched this service around 4 years ago, 3 to 4 years ago, right? So it is a storage service to move large amounts of data. So you get a box like this, which has a e-ink shipping label. You don't have to paste anything. It is an electronic, what do you say, like a display, right? And it has a ruggedized 8G impact case, dust and water resistant, tamper resistant, and data is encrypted inside it. So even if this get lost in the shipping, your data will be safe. So you should not remove your data. So you, after you transfer everything in this, don't remove from your data center. Wait until it goes to AWS and you have a copy in AWS. Okay. Okay, so this is what is it. So you can see a lot of videos, people putting explosive on this or putting it in water and all that. It is very durable, right? So it can handle a lot of impact and all that stuff, water, rain, all that stuff. This is snowball or snowball edge. Both look same, right? Snowball edge, they both look same. Now snowball is not there. Now it is only what do you say, snowball edge, right? They come in different capacities, right? 80 TB, 100. I'm not sure what is the current capacities available, but they come in different capacities. So this was the only option earlier. That is minimum 50 TB you have to order, big box. This is physically very big. It's like a big suitcase. Maybe you can watch somebody on YouTube. They would have shown the video, right? Now, very recently, 3-4 months ago, they launched something called, in the same family, they launched snow cone. So snow cone is like this. It is a smaller device. Everybody, they might not need to 50 TB, 100 TB. Maybe for some people, smaller amount of data. They want to either collect the data or import the data. It is also a same, what do you say, highly rugged device, but with smaller capacity. You see here people using it in the army, in the field, and right in remote locations where you need to collect data and process data, right? For those type of things, you can use snow cone. So is everybody going to use? No. For some people, there is a requirement for this type of service, so they will use it, right? Snow cone is the smaller version which came around 3 or 4 months ago, right? So it has other uses also, right? Like I said, it has some compute, you can use it, but one of the main features is it is useful for large scale what do you say, data transport. So you can, it comes under the snow family. You can just search for AWS snow family, large scale data transport, that's what they call. But you can also do compute. It is not only for transferring data, that is the main thing, or you can make use of AWS using AWS powered appliances. That's what is the edge and snow cone. Okay, right? So what is the cost for this? You can say snowball pricing. In this page it is not there, we just have to Google, right? They will say snowball pricing, but snowball is no longer available, right? So here is the pricing. You pay a per service, per job you pay a service fee, plus you pay for extra days that you keep. It includes the first 10 days of on-site storage, plus you pay for data transfer. I told you data transfer in is always free, data transfer out you have to pay. So suppose you are sending data into S3, there is no data transfer cost. You pay for the service fee plus any extra days you keep, and plus for what do you say, shipping. So snowball edge starts with $300 per job. This includes, you can keep it at your location for 10 days. Excess days you pay so much, right? It varies according to the region. It start earlier it used to be 250, now they have increased to 300. It used to be 200, I think. Yeah, now they have increased it to 300 is the minimum. In Asia Pacific it is usually more expensive. Yeah, in Hong Kong, Singapore and all, it is 400. Okay, and then you have the other pricing information, right? Plus you pay for data transfer. Data transfer in is always free, data transfer out you pay so much. If you are taking something out of S3, then you pay so much per GB apart from the service cost. Then you pay for shipping, whatever shipping method you want. Default is, what do you say, 2 day. If you want it overnight, you can request, you pay the shipping charges. If you lose the device or damage the device when it is in your control, you pay so much. There are three what do you say, snowball edges now: storage optimized, compute with GPU, I told. So you can order either one of them. If you want only storage, you use the storage optimized one. If it gets damaged when it is in your possession, you pay so much. If it gets damaged while it is in transit, that is not your headache, right? Same thing for snow cone, right? Snow cone starts at $60, right? You pay same per job service fee and per day. You can, here snow cone you can keep it for 5 days. That is included in the price, right? $60 is the per snow cone. 6 days per $6 per day if you are keeping it beyond 5 days, and then all the other charges as usual. If you lose it, you pay $2,000. Okay, this is okay. Now you have one more thing called snowmobile. So what you see here, it is not a joke, this is a real thing. Okay, this is called snowmobile. This is a physical truck which will come to your data center. If you have even huge amounts of data like petabytes, exabytes of data, it is not available in all locations. Maybe in 3 or 4 locations it is available, I think, but still they have this service also, where they will bring a truck with their own engineers. They will help you connect to it and transfer your data. Who is going to use this? I don't know, but it is available, right? A truck like this will come, it will connect to your data center, power and network, whatever, and you can transfer and ship it back to AWS, right? It is a real service that is available. Actually, during the launch, they brought the truck onto the stage itself. Few years ago, 4 years ago, I think it has been. So this is also available for people who want to use it. Okay, so it's a 45-foot long container. You connect it to the data center, you fill it up, ship it back to AWS, right? That is also possible. So these services are for large scale data transport. So in your exam, if you get any sort of these questions, right, I want to transfer large amounts of data, which service to use, you have three options now, right? Mostly people are going to use Snowball or Snowball Edge, right? For even larger, for exabytes of data, it is Snowmobile. Okay, so if you want to see how to use that, you can just open some YouTube video. Somebody has probably already shown it, because I cannot order and show you that. It is expensive for me, right? So you can go to YouTube and you can see how to use a AWS Snowball. Somebody would have connected and showed it to you. Here you see firing up the AWS Snowball. You can see the actual device. This is how you learn. Okay, we cannot practically, a single person cannot show everything, right? So here you see, this is how the box looks. It might be having some damage here and there, because it is reused for multiple people. It is not only for you. After you finish using, they will securely erase it and they will use it for the other customer, right? This is how it looks, right? This is how it looks. You download a small client to install that, sorry, to access it, and then you open the client and you transfer the data, right? And then you have AWS itself, how to unlock the Snowball Edge or whatever, right? Just how to start using it, right? So you can just go through this if you are interested in that, but you should know there is a service and how it looks. Okay, if in case in future your company wants to do it, then you can recommend this and you can take it and use it. Okay, okay, so we will take a small break, right? We will catch up in 15 minutes. Okay, 9:30, 9:45 we will catch up.
Okay.
Okay, sure.
Right, so prior to going to the other topics, one more high level thing you need to know: what is multi-part uploads, right? So normally what we are doing, we are uploading files in S3. So far we have seen the basic stuff. You are uploading the files to objects to S3. So what is actually happening in the background is, right, earlier you had to make sure multi-part upload is happening, but now it happens by default. So what is this multi-part upload is when you have a file and you're uploading it to S3, right? So this file is actually split up into smaller parts, and the parts are uploaded in parallel, right? And then what S3 will do is it will combine all these parts and show your object in the bucket. So if you see it in the bucket, it means the file has completed uploading. So why is this useful is when you're doing parallel uploads, when you're doing a lot of uploads, a lot of objects are there, you're putting them. So actually what happens is each object is split up into smaller parts, and those parts are uploaded, right? And then it is all these uploaded parts are combined by S3 and shown it to you as the full object. So if you see it in the bucket, it is the full object, right? So but in the background, this is what is happening. This is called multi-part uploads. So when you are using the console, it is automatically happening via multi-parts. Even though we cannot actually see it, or what do you say, it actually happens. But because multi-part uploads is mostly again a developer topic, because if you are using S3 for backend storage for some applications and lot of files are being uploaded, so you can this multi-part, if you use multi-part uploads, there are benefits, right? There are some benefits to multi-part uploads for different use cases, right? So programmatically when you access, you have to specify, you have to make sure it is going through multi-part uploads, right? The advantage is being for multi-part uploads is when you use multi-part uploads, you can improve the throughput. You can improve the throughput so that the uploads happen in parallel, right? Uploads happen in parallel. So say you have 4 files, 1, 2, 3, 4. So normally it will go first file, then second file, then third file. No, parallel means at the same time, maybe 3 or 4 files are being uploaded at the same time, right? So with multi-part uploads, this is possible. At the parallel, three files are being uploaded. The first file is split up into small parts, second file split up into small parts, whatever, and it keeps going like that. So you improve your throughput.
So this is, so
Yeah.
is this irrespective of file size, right?
Yeah, irrespective. Usually it is recommended to do multi-part uploads if your file size is greater than 100 MB. If it is less than 100 MB, you don't need to do multi-part uploads. If you want, you can do. There is nothing wrong. But this is the consideration, or this is the, what do you say, recommendation that AWS gives. If your object size is greater than 100 MB, use multi-part uploads, especially when you're doing programmatic access, because the console automatically it tries to do multi-part upload. You cannot control that. So whenever you're using the programmatic access, either the CLI or some third-party tools, right? So those cases you have to make sure multi-part upload is supported, or you use multi-part upload. So I showed you this tool, right? A third-party tool for S3. So like this, there are many tools. There is one tool called rclone, which I'll show you tomorrow probably in the next class, right? So these tools, when you use something like this, make sure they support multi-part uploads. They support S3, all right. You can use this tool to connect to S3 and upload files. But is this tool supporting multi-part upload? Has this developer who developed these tools, has he made multi-part uploads by default, or do you have to choose an option? Or there are some tools in which only the paid version has multi-part upload, the free version does not have multi-part upload. So you have to check that, especially when you're using third-party tools or programmatic access, because everything other than the console is programmatic access. Everything other than the console is programmatic access. Whether you're using a third-party tool like rclone or cyberduck, right? We have to make sure either we give the option for multi-upload, or by default is it enabled or no. If it is not, you have to do it. If you're doing it programmatically, they have given the, what do you say, how to use multi-part uploads if you're using Java SDK, or what do you say, .NET or PHP or whatever you're using. For that, how to use multi-part uploads, they have given the code for that. How do you do when you're using it as a backend for applications? For that, they have specified, right? So what are the advantages is, like I said, so we as architect may not do the development side. Maybe we upload a lot of files on a regular basis. So what happens, there are some problems, I told you, right? Your internet connection might get interrupted, or you want to stop your uploads and then resume, right? All those are possible only with multi-part uploads, right? You can recover from network issues, right? So because of the parts, it will, what do you say, it will continue from where it left off, right? When it starts uploading again, it will not upload the parts which have already been uploaded, right? The file will be uploaded, but the parts which have already gone to S3, they will not be re-uploaded, right? Next thing is you can pause and resume your downloads, sorry, uploads. So multi-part is, remember, it's only for uploads, right? You can pause and resume your uploads. In the console, you may not be able to do something like that, right? So these are some of the advantages, right, when you use multi-part upload. So mostly we use this tool called rclone to sync our backups or something like that, right? Yeah, I'll show you that probably towards the end or tomorrow's class, right? There is a tool called rclone, a command line tool, right, which works with different platforms. It's not only for S3, it can be used on Azure, Google Drive, all those things, right? So to manage your stuff in, what do you say, in the cloud environment, right? It's a very powerful tool. It can be used for different things, copying files, syncing files, right, migrating data, all those things, so that you have some control instead of just using the basic official GUI, right? It is very limited. The official GUI is very limited, right? You cannot pass, you cannot do those things, but still by default it uses multi-part uploads, but you don't have that control that you get with programmatic access. Okay, so rclone, that's cyberduck, they are all some tools, but technically they come under programmatic access, right? I told you only this GUI is the official GUI, everything else is programmatic access, which is why they have additional features. So this is available as a command line tool, and now they have also launched a GUI type, but most of them don't use the GUI, they use the command line with the different options. So these are the basic options you have, right? Okay, so I use this, if you talk about me personally, I use this to sync my class recordings to S3. I store the backups in S3. So maybe once a month, all the recordings I push to S3. I don't have to sit and manually see them uploading, or connection breaks, what happens, power cut, all that, right? So I just put them overnight. By the morning, they are uploaded, right? If there is any interruption, it will resume by itself. It will make sure that all the files are copied properly, right? So we will see the tool also, right? This is multi-part uploads, right? Okay, now let us go back to some of the important features in S3. One is called versioning. Okay, versioning. Okay, this is one of the first features we will see in S3. So what is versioning? So what is the default behavior in S3? So let us take a bucket, right? We have an object. Okay, so let me clean this up. Okay, let me just delete. Let me keep one file. Okay, so we have this bucket. So what happens when I upload a file? Upload this AWS PNG, or let me do one thing. Okay, 1 minute. Let me open that file. That is my favorite file, version example. Okay, so here I have a file. Okay, I'm using a Word file, sorry, a text file, so that we can see it in the browser. Otherwise, every time I have to download the file. It is the same for any file. I'm just using a text file so that we can see the difference without downloading the file. Okay, so now here I have a file called version.example, right? So it is not there in S3. In S3, some other file called aws.png is there, right? So for practicing this, what I am going to do is, okay, let us start from fresh. Probably it will be more clear. Let me empty this bucket. And let me delete this bucket. Let us start from fresh. Okay, let us go ahead and create the bucket demo sep5. Okay, so we have created this bucket. So first what I want you to do is, I want you to go to permissions and remove the block access. I told you, now what they have put an additional protection for block. So you cannot make your objects public. To make your objects public, first you have to remove the block. Okay, these two steps you have to do. I mean, it is not required. I am doing it so that I don't have to download the file everywhere. Every time I can just show it in the browser. If I make it public read access, that is why I'm doing this. Is not required, right? Otherwise, if I upload some file, then I have to, what you said, download that file and again open it and show you. I just want to open it in a new browser tab so that I will make it public read access. Okay, so what you need to do, first go to permissions, go to block access and remove that block. So currently you are blocked from enabling any of these settings. It will not allow you to enable any of these settings. So you remove the block, that is, you uncheck everything and then you save. It will say now it is possible that your bucket can be made public. It is not yet public. It is saying from now it is possible that some objects can become public, that is, you can make them public. So you remove the block, right? You remove the block, don't do anything else, right? Now come back to the bucket. Now we will upload some files. Now let me upload a file called some file aws.png. Okay, so now you just go to the next step and scroll down under permissions. Don't change anything on the top. Just down manage public permissions. Just make it public read. By default, it will be private. Your object will be private. Now I am making it public read. Public read means with that URL you can access the object. I don't need to download. I don't need to log into S3 and download the file. With that URL, anybody can access that file. I'm just doing that so that I can show you in the browser without downloading the file. Okay. So while uploading the object, make sure you select grant public read. It is not required. So to make your practice easy, you can do this, right? Remove the block and then make it public read access and then say upload. Don't worry about other things. So now we have uploaded this file aws.png. What is there in aws.png? We have this file. I can open this in the browser because I made it publicly accessible. If I open this URL now without logging in, I can see the picture. Otherwise, I have to download this file and show you. So instead of doing that, so that I can directly open it, I removed the block access and made it public read. That is the only reason. It is not required. Okay. Right. So now you see the file. This file is there. Now let us say I edit that file. Right. I'm opening Paintbrush. It is the local copy. This is on my laptop. Right. And I'm adding something else. Right. Now I'm uploading it again. The file name is same. I have not changed the file name. Right. Then also again go to next and just make it read again. Upload. Now what has happened? You see it has changed. It became 18 bytes, 10015. The old one is overwritten. Old one is gone. You cannot recover it. Now what will you see? The object URL will remain the same because the object name is the same. It is in the same bucket. The URL will remain the same. So now if I go and check the URL, what you will see? You will see the new object. Right? So S3 does not care what is there inside. If the object name key is same, it will overwrite. That is the default behavior. Right? Okay. It will overwrite. Now what if I remove this file? I deleted this file. It is gone. You cannot recover it. Now if I use the URL, it will give error because that file is not there or you don't have permission. We know it is not there. That's why you are getting error. You cannot recover. You don't see any option to unhide or anything, right? It is gone. If you delete, it is gone. So let me upload again. This is the default behavior of S3, right? We are just making it public so that in the browser we can open, right? So this is the default behavior. Now you don't want this behavior. So what is the option, right? So some people in your office or in your team, by mistake, they are removing the files or they are overwriting the files. You want to keep both the files. How do you do that? Right? For that we have an option called versioning. Right? What is versioning? It has only two states. It can either be enabled or be suspended. You cannot disable it, right? You should not use the word disable. There is a different meaning for that. It is either enabled or it's suspended. By default, it is not enabled, right? Even though in the console it will say disable, technically it is suspended. Okay, so it is, what do you say? We do it at the bucket level. This is at the bucket level. You configure it. So how do you do that? You go to S3. You go to properties, right? You go to versioning. If you want to read about versioning, whatever I'm explaining is here. Click on learn more. How to enable bucket versioning. Steps are given here. I'm just showing you while practicing. Where do you look? This is where you look. Whatever I'm doing is given over here with screenshots. Okay. So you go to versioning and you enable it. It's not enabled by default. It is suspended. Right? You enable versioning and save. That's all. Now what happens? Now let me upload another file. I have a file called version example.txt. right? So that we can see the difference. I'm just putting files like this, right? So I will make it public read so that we can straight away see in the browser, right? So if I look at version example now, after enabling versioning, you will see there is a new option here, right? It says versions hide show. Earlier this option was not there, right? Now you will see this new pop up in the console. So don't worry about this now. So we have uploaded this file, right? It is 11 bytes, right? 1004. We can open this using its link because it is public. So you can see what is there, version. That is what is there in the file. You are able to see. Now let us say I am updating, I am making some change in the file, or I am not making any change. It does not matter whether you make a change or you don't make a change. For S3 it is a overwrite. Now let us say I am not making any change in the file. I am uploading the file again. I am uploading the file again. Let me change the permission. So now existing file is, it was the date. You see the date changed. It overwrote. But what is there in the file? The URL is the same. The content is the same. So it is the same. But it overwrote the previous one. So now technically what will happen is, if you go to the show view, you can see the object and its versions. So if you see this object, we didn't overwrite aws.png. Don't worry about that. We are talking about version example now, right? So what happens when it overwrote? The previous one which I uploaded, it came down. Both may be same. Technically inside might be same, but it does not care, right? So with versioning, what you have is, when you enable versioning, you will have you will see basically three things. You will see latest version. You may see any of these things, latest or previous versions, or you will see no version. That is, it will say null. So don't worry about null. I will come back to that. So there will always be, if there is an object, then it will have one latest version and 0 or more previous versions. Okay, if there is an object, there will be one latest version and there may or may not be previous versions. Previous versions will come if you overwrite it. If you don't overwrite the file, it is always, there is only one version, that is the latest version. If you overwrite it once, then whatever is the current latest will become the previous. Whatever you're uploading will become the new. So like this, it will keep on going. There is no limit. Now let us say I edit this file. Version is there. Now I'm calling it version 1. Simply I'm putting some change. Now let me upload this file. The default view is hide. Now let me go and upload. Now you see the file size is 24 bytes. Again, let me just make it public read. Okay, now you see it has uploaded as 24 bytes. Now if I open the URL, what I will see? I will see the latest version. This is the latest. So what happened to the old one? You can go to the show view and you can see where this thing. Second. Right. So now what happened? You can see the latest version. The latest is this version 1. Right. You see that. But the previous ones are still there. Whatever I uploaded now became the latest. The earlier one came down. So now I have two previous versions and one latest version. For this file aws.png, there is only latest version because I have not yet overwritten it. So there will be one latest version. There may be 1 or 0 or more previous versions depending on what you are doing. Okay. So now here in the hide view, that is the normal view, you will see the latest version. If you want the previous version, then you can choose the file and you can see over here. You have the latest and the previous two old ones. You can download either one of them. Whatever you want, you can access. So if somebody says I overwrote the file, you still have the previous one also if you enable versioning. Okay, you can do it from here or you can go to show. When you go to show, you can see each object and its different versions. So if you take the version example file, right, you see it has 3 versions, 1 latest, 2 old, whichever you want you can access, right? Now coming to the question of URL, every object has a URL. So this version example has a URL, but there are three files. The file name is the same, but there are three versions of it. So what is the URL for the other two? If I put the standard URL for that object, I am seeing the latest version, but I don't want the latest, I want the one of the old ones. So what is the URL for that? How will the URL be unique? So they insert something called a version ID. Even the latest version will have a version ID, but you don't need to specify that. If you look at the URL, right, the URL comes with a version ID, whether it is the latest version or the old version, it will have a version ID if you enable versioning. If you don't enable versioning, obviously there will be no version ID, only till here. So for the latest version, you don't need to give the version ID. You just give the URL, it returns the latest, or you can include its version ID. For the previous versions, you have to give the version ID. Each version will have its own version ID, unique ID that is generated by AWS. Now, if I want the previous one, here is the link for it. Sorry. Right here is the link for the previous one. It will have its own version ID. The object name, bucket name, everything is same. Till here the URL is same. Only thing is question mark version ID equal to the version ID. This is how the URL will be unique when you have multiple versions. Okay. Now why is this file aws.png, why is it saying no version ID? Why? Why is it saying null? Why is the version ID saying null? It does not have something like this. Why? Because
we haven't enabled the version.
yes, because for this file, this was there even before we enabled versioning. It was already there. It was an existing object. When that object was there, versioning was not there. After that, I enabled versioning. Okay. So now what will happen if I overwrite aws.png? We have aws.png, right? Let me edit it. Let me make some change. Okay. And let me upload it again. Right. Let us see what will happen. Now we see the AWS PNG file, right? It is there. Now let me upload this. What will happen? Any idea?
So it will get the file with the version ID.
Yeah, let us see. So let us go here. We will grant read access, upload. So now you see it has overwritten. 1012 it has overwritten. Now if I open this file with its URL, I will see the new file. Right? You see the new file. But what happened if you go to the show view? You can see now AWS PNG also has 2 versions. The old one will be there. Old one will not be removed. Okay? It will exist with a version ID of null. It is null because this object was created when there was no versioning. So its version ID is null. That is basically it does not have version ID. But the URL will say equal to null. Version ID equal to null. Because now we have another version. From now it will get versioned. Okay? If you enable versioning, if any objects were already there in the bucket, because versioning nobody is going, I mean, mostly you may not do it on a fresh bucket. Already some files might be there, then you might enable versioning, right? Practically. Here, we created a new bucket, but in real time, there might be a bucket already, which already has some files. Then you enable versioning means for the objects that are already there, from now it will start doing versioning when you start overwriting them. The existing object will not have a version ID. If versioning is not enabled when you upload an object, it will not have a version ID. If versioning is enabled, automatically it will get a version ID, even if it is the latest version. Now let me upload a different file. Right? Let us upload a different file called AWS services. So I am uploading this file when versioning is enabled. Right? AWS services. So if you go to show and see, AWS services will have a version ID because this file was uploaded when versioning was enabled. Even though it is only one file, it will be there. Right? This file 1.txt I uploaded when versioning was not there, so its version ID is null. From now onwards, everything is versioned. Okay, so this is versioning. You can access whatever version you want. Okay. So now coming to some of the benefits you might see or why people might enable versioning. Right. So now what happens? Now I'm in the normal view, that is the hide view. Now what happens if I remove this file? Version example, I'm going to delete. So what you see outside, right, is the latest version. Okay. What you see by default outside is the latest version. So let us say I'm going to actions and deleting it. Then what will happen? You see it is gone. But when versioning is enabled, it is technically not gone. It is just hidden. So you can go to show, and when you go to that file, one object version.example, you see all the three versions are still there. One was latest, two were previous. They are still there. What it is doing, AWS is inserting something called a delete marker. This is just hiding the file. It is actually physically not removing it, it is just hiding it. To undelete it, what you need to do is you need to remove this delete marker. If you want to restore the files, you just say actions, delete. Delete the delete marker. The delete marker is like a mask on top of the object. It is also an object, but it is actually a delete marker. It does not have any data as such. Right? You are removing the delete marker. When you do that, again the topmost one becomes the latest version. You go to the normal view, you will see the file again. Okay, so you can recover from accidental deletes if you delete like this. But if you go into the show view, okay, if you go into the show view and then you delete, you cannot recover. Now if I go to the show view and I delete the latest version, then what will happen? You cannot recover the latest version. The previous one will become the latest version. If you go into the show view and
so that if I want to,
yeah,
so if I want to recover this delete marker, then is there any?
No, the delete marker is inserted by AWS. It has nothing. See, now if I'm in the
That's
normal
fine.
view, if I delete this, right, if I delete this file, it is gone. But technically it is not gone. It is hiding. It is hiding behind the delete marker.
Yeah. Correct. So if I want to roll back this one,
that's what I said. You delete the delete marker. This is like a mask on top of these two. This is hiding these two files.
okay.
Okay, so now we have three versions of the
Got
file.
it.
Right? You have three versions of the file or two versions of the file, whatever. Right? So when you delete it, what happened outside? It is inserting something called a delete marker. This is just hiding these three files from the view. So if you want to undelete it, you remove this thing. That's all. You delete the delete marker. That's all. When you delete it, automatically the three will show up. Whatever is on top becomes the latest version. That's all. Okay. But if you go and delete a specific version, let me delete the delete marker. Right? If you delete from outside, no problem, you can recover. But if you go inside the show view and you delete a specific version like this, it is gone. You cannot recover. If you delete like this, then it is gone. You cannot recover. Okay. If you go and delete any specific version, you cannot recover it. It is actually physically deleting. Then what is the cost? Let me upload again. So what is the cost for this? So there is no special cost for versioning. You only pay for the storage. For the storage means you pay for the sum of all these. Now for this version example, there are two versions. One is 24 bytes, one is 11 bytes. So I pay for 35 bytes. Right? You pay for the sum of all the storage, because it is actually keeping each copy of the file, right? What is shown outside is the latest. But for your security or for your purpose, you have enabled versioning so that by mistake, if people delete or overwrite, you still have access to the files. So what you pay only for this storage. Right? So if you have files which are frequently overwritten, then there will be more versions. You have to clean up the versions, otherwise your storage cost will accumulate. Got it?
So the cost calculates the storage thing also, right?
It is only for storage. There
For
is no special
example, I
cost
mean,
for versioning. Versioning as such has no cost. Suppose for this file there are two versions, you
yeah,
pay
that's
for the combined storage. That's all.
yeah. So if you go for hide, right? Say for example, version example, if you go for hide, I mean, so here there's something 24
Yeah,
byte, right? Correct.
yeah.
So if you go for show,
See,
show,
see what you see here is the latest. If you show, you will
correct.
see the
So
same.
now 24 byte is there.
24 byte is the latest.
So go down 24 bytes plus 11 bytes, right?
Yes.
So it
So
will cost for that, right?
yes, it will cost for both combined together, right? Because these
Okay.
are two different objects. For you, it is the same file name, but for
Yeah, yeah.
S3, they are two different files. Each has its own size. Even though the name is same, file size may be different. It may be same also. If I'm uploading the same file again, the file size will be same, but still you have to pay for it because it
Correct.
is
So
keep.
what I thought is, I mean, yeah, yeah. So what I thought is the cost will be like 24 byte plus 24 byte plus 11 byte, like that.
No, 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 no. What you see outside is latest. What you see inside is latest plus all the old. What you see outside is
Yeah, correct.
this one on the top.
So it will be 24 bytes plus, so it
11.
will be 24 plus 11. That's it.
11.
Huh?
Yes. Plus 17 plus 18 plus 3 for all the
Okay.
files for this bucket. So as you keep adding more versions,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
these files are frequently used or frequently modified and overwritten, then you will have more versions. So you have to be careful, especially if it is large files. Suppose it is some video files or something, right? Like which may go into GB. Some people who are doing video editing or whatever, they are storing in S3, right? If 2 3 people are working on the same thing and they keep uploading the files, then what will happen? It will store all the files, like it will be in GBs. So it might quickly, for certain cases where people use this heavily, their cost is going to go out of control. They might need only the latest version, but they are just keeping the older ones for safety, maybe for 2 days or something, right? So you should clean that up. So how to clean that up? You can come and manually delete. You can say, okay, my company says I should enable the versioning for the buckets, but the versions have to be removed after 1 week. We are keeping it as safety. Let us say our policy says all your buckets have to, in real time this happens, right? They will say please enable versioning for the buckets, because it is a small, what do you say, small kind of protection, maybe you can say, right? So when you enable versioning, what happens? The behavior that we saw will happen. So there will be a latest version, plus there may be multiple old versions, previous versions. So if you don't do anything, they will keep accumulating because S3 is unlimited storage. If this file is written 100 times, then you will have one latest and the 99 previous versions. So maybe they will say previous versions have to be removed after 1 week, right? So that you clean up, you don't accumulate cost optimization. This is right. So you want to do that. How you can do? Then after every week you can log in and you can check any old files are there. I will delete. Right? You can come here. You can open. Right? You can come to show. You can see the version. Okay, September 5th. Okay, this file I will remove on September 11th. September 11th you will come and delete. Right? So practically it is not possible to do that. While practicing, okay, you finish practicing, you will remove the files or whatever. But in real time, they are not going to remove the files, all the files. Right? Some files have to be there, some files have to be removed. So how do you do that? That's what we'll be seeing next. And also, I told you in storage class, which storage class to use. So, right, the next topic we are going to see is, what is that? Life cycle transition or life cycle rules, right? So it is useful for multiple things. One thing is about storage class. We saw these storage classes, right? Which storage class to use? Glacier Deep Archive. Now it depends upon your use case. Again, I told you there is no straightforward answer for storage class. It depends upon your use case. Now, let us say, for example, you are taking backups of something, and say your backup policy says I have to keep the backup for 1 week, right? Backup I am taking of something, it has to be stored for 1 week. Then which storage class you will use, right? So you can use standard.
Yes, standard.
Because if you use Glacier, then Glacier has some conditions. Glacier says you have to store for 90 days. Glacier Deep Archive says you have to store for 180 days. So if you remove a file in less than that, you still have to pay for the 90 or 180 days. So it is not a good choice. It will work. Working is different. What is optimum is different. Okay. You can put your backup in any storage class. It is going to be there. You can access it. But practically, what is optimum, whether from cost point of view, from our accessibility point of view, or from availability point of view, what is more optimum, that is what we should choose. It is not like backup. If you put here, it will not save, it will save, but you cannot access it immediately. If you put in Glacier, you cannot access immediately. You have to request for access. I think I showed you that. Did I show you that? Glacier? Let me just quickly do it. Let me upload some file into Glacier. Right? So when I upload something into Glacier, I change the storage class to Glacier or Glacier Deep Archive, whatever it is, right? And I say upload, right? So we have a file in now Glacier. It will say Glacier, right? 163 bytes. So I cannot access this file immediately. It is not available for immediate download. In storage classes, we saw the comparison, right? You cannot access this immediately. You have to request for a restore. You have to ask Amazon to restore that object. Right, restore means take it out of cold storage and put it outside in standard. So I will say I want it outside for 1 day. Okay, so and then you have 3 options for the restore, right? So do you want it immediately? So if you want it immediately means within the few minutes, then you choose expedited retrieval. For that you have to purchase some additional capacities. Standard retrieval is you get your data within 3 to 5 hours. Bulk is if you are doing a lot of data retrieval, then it is recommended to use bulk retrieval, which might take 5 to 12 hours. So once you choose this and you say restore, it will take some time. It is not restored immediately. Restore means it is bringing it out of Glacier. I told you it is like your cold storage. In your freezer, if you are storing some meat, if you want to take it out and cook, you cannot cook it immediately. You have to wait for some time. Right? Same thing here. If you put anything in Glacier, it is not available immediately. Now, if my manager comes and says, give me the backup, if it is in Glacier, you cannot click and say download. You have to say, manager, wait, tomorrow morning I will give you. Right? So now if you check this object, it will say the restoration is in progress. That is, it is in the process of taking it out of Glacier. After it comes out of Glacier, then you can download it. Right? So Glacier and Glacier Deep Archive is for long-term storage. Same thing with Glacier Deep Archive. In Glacier Deep Archive, the minimum itself is 12 hours. You cannot take anything in less than 12 hours in Glacier Deep Archive. Right? Now we have this in Glacier Deep Archive. Here also same. I cannot download the file. I can only do a restore. When I do a restore, for how many days do you want to restore it? 1 day. And what is the restore tier? Bulk or standard? Bulk means you have to wait for up to 48 hours. Standard is up to 12 hours. So these files are not immediately accessible. That's why it is not used for content delivery and all that. Like I told you, shopping site, Amazon, where they use images, there they cannot use Glacier and Glacier Deep Archive because the object is immediately not accessible. It will be in Glacier. It will give error. Right? So it takes so much time for it to restore. So these are only for very long-term storage, that is greater than 90 days or 180 days, where you can tell people, okay, tomorrow I will give you the backup. Now immediately you can't give. Those type of cases you use Glacier. Okay. Now your backup is 1 week. After 1 week you can expire. You can delete the backup. So maybe you will put it in standard, or maybe standard infrequent access is also okay. Maybe backup they will not access it. They just want to keep it for safety. Then maybe you can use infrequent access. But then what happens? Infrequent access minimum is 30 days. If you delete in less than 30 days, you have to pay for it. So standard is the better choice. Standard is the better choice from cost optimization and access from both point of view. Standard is better. Okay. Now what happens if your backup, they say you take backups every day, you have to store the backup for 1 year. After 1 year, you can expire the backups. Then which storage class you will choose? Right? Let me know which storage class you will use.
So come again. 1 year after 1 year, right?
Yeah, you're taking backups every day, and they need to be stored for 1 year. The duration.
Okay. Okay. So based on the
It's
retrieval,
infrequent.
we have to choose the right. For if you want they want a backup immediately, you'll go with standard. If they're working with 2 days or 1 week, they will go with the deep archive.
Yeah.
They want to they delay one day delay and go with the glacier.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. So something like that. But when you take some of these use cases, like in practical, what will happen? So you know in your environment when they can ask for backup, right? So how long they are willing to wait, right? Suppose, say for example, in my environment, right? Say we take backups every day, whether it is application backups or DB backups or something, we take every day, right? Say we take application backups. This is just what we are doing. I'm telling you, right? We take application backups, right? We take DB backups. DB backups are taken 3 or 4 times a day. 4 times a day they are taken, and they are stored for 1 year. Application backups are taken daily once, and they are stored for what do you say, a month or so, right? I think 60 days application backups are stored, something like this. Okay, so in my environment, what happens is the DB backups I have to give every day to the developers. Out of these 4 backups, some 1 backup every day I have to give the developer, or after every 2 days once they will ask, give me day before yesterday's backup, give me yesterday's backup, because they want to work on the DB, some development work they want the latest DBs, or they want the previous day's DB, or for checking something, or some data loss or something they want to do. So what they will do, suppose today is September 5th, let us take the month of September 1 to 30. So every day I'm taking backup of DB, 4 backups every day, and I'm storing. Maybe on September 5th the guy will say, give me September 3rd backup, or maybe on 5th he will say, give me 4th backup, right? Or give me the 5th backup, he might ask, right? But on September 30th, he may not ask the 1st or 5th backup, he may ask the 27th backup or 26th backup, something like that, mostly. Now coming to October, he may never ask the September backup, he may ask just only the October backup now and then, like same pattern. So these backups I have to store till next year September, correct? Let us say we are starting from now, so I have to store till September 2021. For September, October is October 2021, correct? Every backup has to be stored for 1 year. Daily we are taking backups, right? So I know my usage pattern. Okay, when we come to December, they will not ask the September backup mostly. Even if they ask, I want September backup, I will say I will give tomorrow. Today I cannot give, tomorrow only I will give. They are fine with that. So based on this usage pattern, which storage class to choose?
We will go with the first level for standard backup. We store up to 30 days over there, because anyway we're going to pay for 30 days, right?
Yeah.
Even for once 30 days more, then we will move all those data into like Glacier. Glacier for 90 days. I mean, next after 90 days, we will move to that Glacier deep archive for keep over next 1 year, remaining month.
So you can,
90, yeah.
So you can do like that, right? That's what
9
people
months.
do, right? So depending upon the use pattern, first they will store somewhere. So okay, I know first 30 days they are going to ask, so I will keep my backups in the standard for the first 30 days, right? First 30 days I will keep. Then maybe I know, okay, first 2 months also there is a possibility they will ask, but in the first month there is high possibility. Every day they will ask for the previous backup. So first 30 days my backup will be here. Then I will move to infrequent access. Here I will keep for 30 days, so that in October also if they ask for September backup, I can give it immediately. But they will ask only 1 or 2 times, so no problem. Data retrieval cost is less. But because I am retrieving only 1 or 2 files, okay, it is okay for me, but I am able to give it immediately. So for the first 60 days, if they ask the file, I can give it to them in a few minutes. I can just download and give it to them, right, according to my use case. Then okay, then I know after 60 days, very rarely they will ask. So September and October, September backups, after October, very rarely it is going to be asked. Even if they ask, I will say I will give only tomorrow morning. So I can straight away move it to Glacier, or I can also move it to Glacier Deep Archive. That is up to you. Where you want to move, how, when you want to move, that is up to you, your use case. So I can move to Glacier and I can keep it for the 90 days, because here you have to keep for 90 days. If you don't keep, they will charge you for that. Then after the 90 days, you can move here, and here you can say keep for 365 days. And then you can automatically say expire. This you don't need to do manually. You can do manually, but people don't do manually. You create a rule for that called a life cycle rule. Right? So in the life cycle rule, what you can do, you can transition. Sorry, you can transition. There are two features, transition and expire. You can do both, or you can do any one. That is up to you. If you don't want to expire, if they say backups you have to keep until I tell you to delete, then you don't expire. You just move it, it will be in Glacier. It will not go anywhere. If you don't want to go to Glacier Deep Archive, keep it in Glacier only. If you don't want to go to Glacier, keep it in Standard in Archive. That is totally in your control, how you want to move. Right? So how you want to move, when you want to move, whether you want to expire. Suppose the first example I told you, backup want to keep for 1 week. Then where you will keep? Standard you will keep. And then they're saying after 1 week expire. So here itself you can say keep for 1 week, then expire. So it will keep here, and then it will remove automatically. So you can expire at any stage. You can expire the object set any stage. You can keep it in standard. You can migrate to infrequent access. You can expire here. Without migrating, you can expire here, or you can straight away upload to Glacier, and from Glacier you can expire. Suppose say you are having logs, some transaction logs, which hardly people check. Rarely they will check. So those logs, maybe they have to be stored for a year. Right? So you're taking some server logs or something, right, which needs to be stored for a long time because of some compliance reason. People will never check it. Whenever there is an audit, you have to give the logs. So audit will happen once a year or something. So what you can do, you can straight away store the logs in Glacier or Glacier Deep Archive, and you can say expire after 1 year or 2 years, whatever it is. Right? You don't have to use all the storage classes or all the transition. You have all the storage classes. You have the option to move and expire. You can mix it up in whatever way you want. But the only condition is you can go only from top to bottom while transitioning. You can go from standard to infrequent access, or standard to one zone, or standard to Glacier, or standard to Glacier Archive, or from standard infrequent to one zone, like this. You cannot go from Glacier to like this, or one zone to standard, or standard infrequent. You cannot go upward. That is currently not possible. These transitions happen from top to bottom. That is in any order, but it has to be top to bottom, from the top storage class to the bottom storage class. Right? You can use all. You can go from standard to here, from here to here, from here to here, or here to here, or you can directly go from standard to Glacier also. Suppose your backups, I told you, they will access only in the first month. After that, they will never access. Then straight away from standard, you can go to Glacier after 1 month. Right? Okay. And if you want, you can expire it. If you want to remove them, you can remove them. That is life cycle policy. Right? So we will see how to do this. Okay, we will see how to do this. Just give me a minute. I had a picture. Okay, no problem. Where is the life cycle policy? Okay, let me just show you. I'm not able to find that. Yeah. So let us see how to do this life cycle. rules, right? People also call it lifecycle policy. Earlier it used to be called lifecycle policies. Now it is called lifecycle rule. So how do you do that? Again, you need a bucket for that, right? We have our bucket. You go to management, right? And then you go to lifecycle, right? Lifecycle rule. So what you can basically do, you can use your lifecycle rule to manage your objects. You can either transition them to a different storage class, or you can expire them, or any combination you can do. That is up to you, right? You can do both, or you can do any one, right? So how do you do that? You say add a rule, and you can give the rule some name. Okay, I'll come back. And then you specify the scope. So this is what I am not sure if I told you. Let me just explain. So here, if you see, I told you in S3 in the beginning, there is no concept called bucket. Sorry, no concept called folder. Right, S3 is a flat file structure. Technically, there is no such thing as a folder. The word folder is visible only in the GUI. Okay, so here if I say create folder, let me say folder called temp, right? It will create a folder, but technically it is a prefix. It is a prefix for your object. So inside this, if I upload some object, right? Inside this, if I upload some object, right? Technically, the temp is a prefix for the object. If you look at this object URL, right? It is the same. You have the bucket name, right? Slash something. So this temp is not the object. This temp is the prefix for this file. So technically, it is temp slash 1.txt. So temp is just a prefix for the object.
So Siddharth, so here what will be the key here actually then?
The key is temp slash 1.txt, but even though we say 1.txt, temp becomes the prefix. Key is just the object name.
Okay.
Right? That
Okay.
temp is just a prefix for the object. The word, what do you say? Folder is used only in the GUI so that you can arrange your data in a easy visual, what do you say, representation. But technically, it is a prefix for the object. It is not the folder as such, because S3 there is no such thing as a folder. It's a flat file structure, right? So because it is all programmatic, right? This console is just for to make our work easier. Okay. So now when you come to this thing, right, the lifecycle policy, you go to management, you go to lifecycle policy. So you can give the rule. I will just say demo, right? Right, some demo lifecycle rule. So now it is asking for a scope. Scope means, do you want to limit it to a specific prefix or tag? Here they will not say folder. Folder will come only there. Everywhere else they will say prefix. Tag, you don't worry. So prefix means they are referring to what we think as folder. Okay. So it is just for your how you arrange your data. Suppose say, like I said, we are taking backups for our application and DB. So how are you going to store them? Some people will keep two buckets, one for app, one for DB. Fine, it will work. Some people, they will keep one bucket. They will say project X or Y something. And then they will keep one folder for app, one folder for DB. They will put all the app backups here, all the DB backups here, right? So it depends on how they are doing, how they are arranging their data. It is the same whether you put in two different buckets or in one bucket, the cost is the same. But each team or each company might have their own way of categorizing or their standard of storing the files, right? So you can apply this lifecycle rule for an entire bucket, for everything in the bucket, or only to a specific folder. That is what they say prefix. If you want the rule to apply to files only in this app folder, then it will apply to this. So you can have two rules. Like I said, my applications have to be stored for 60 days. My DB has to be stored for 1 year. So I can create a rule that says prefixes, I can say my app folder. So for that, I can specify one rule. For my DB folder, I can specify another rule. If you have two buckets, you create two rules. For the app bucket, you create on the app bucket. For the DB bucket, you create on the DB bucket. The rule is the same. If both are in the same bucket, then you have to specify the prefix, right? Prefix is what? The folder, right? Suppose if
again,
yeah, go ahead.
See again, when it comes to this topic, okay. So the prefix is nothing but the app, and the file is nothing but a DB. You make example, okay. So whatever
No,
I'm
prefix
doing
is
for
not
this
app.
app specifically.
No, no. See, that is the folder. Let me cancel this.
Okay, okay.
Let me go back to the bucket name. Now let us say in one bucket I'm going to store both the backups. Okay. Let us say in one bucket I'm going to put everything. Right. So let us say in this bucket I have I'm going to create a folder. I'm going to say app backups. Then I have another folder called DB backups. This is inside this bucket, right? Inside the DB, I have my DB backups. Let us say some file we will upload. We will assume it is a DB, right? Inside the DB backup, same thing. Inside the app backup, some app backups will be there. Okay. Apart from that, in this bucket, some other files are also there outside. Okay. So now your backup policy says DB backups have to be there for 1 year. App backups have to be there for 60 days.
Okay, okay, got it.
So now you can create two life cycle rules, right? You can say life cycle rule 1, right? You can give it a name, right? App backup rule, and you can limit it to only to that folder. What is our folder? App backup or something we put, right? So for items inside this folder, do whatever I am saying. That is what we are going in the next step, right? In the next step, I will say app backup remove after 60 days or transition or whatever. That will happen only to the stuff inside this. Then I will create another rule called DB backup. Then I will put for the DB folder, DB backup, whatever folder I give. Then for whatever I am saying will happen to stuff inside this. For everything else, it will not do anything because I have some stuff outside also, right? They will not be impacted, right? It depends
Okay,
on.
yeah. So I got correct. Yeah, I got your point. So in this case,
Yeah.
if I'm creating a app backup and DB backup for example 60 days, both 60 days, okay.
Okay.
But I'm creating a bucket policy as some 90 days, okay.
I didn't get what 90 days bucket policy.
See, I'm configuring bucket level.
Okay. What are you configuring?
See, demo even September 5, right? So it's a bucket, right? So in that I'm just configuring this backup whatever inside this bucket should be moved to 90 days, okay, something.
No, I will show you. Then maybe you will understand. Let me show you the policy. Then your doubt will
Okay,
be clarified, right? So life
okay,
cycle policy is for your objects inside the bucket. For all the objects are for certain prefix. It is not for the bucket as such. It is for what is inside the bucket. Okay. Inside the bucket, like I said,
okay, okay,
people can have multiple buckets. Means each bucket you have to go and add the policy. Now, if I add any policy here, it is for the stuff inside this bucket. So inside this bucket, I can apply for everything or only for a specific folder, that is specific prefix. Okay. If I
okay,
want the transition to happen only for app I have a set of rules that we have to define. For DB, I have a set of rules that we have to define. If no, I have separate bucket for app, separate bucket for DB, then you say apply to all objects and you create the rule, because in that bucket you don't have anything else. You have only app related stuff, easier to do, right? Now I'm saying I'm going to
yeah,
create a rule. Let me say demo, right? And I'm saying apply this to all objects in the bucket. So in that bucket, whatever is there, for everything this rule will apply, right? Now what are you going to do? That is what you have to do in the next steps. So you can either transition or expire, or you can do both. That is what you have to configure. So what is our requirement? Accordingly we have to do. So what was the example we took? So we will take an example, right? And then accordingly we have to create a rule, because simply just like that you can't create. What you want, you have to create. Now let us say we have to store our backups for 1 year. Some backup, whether it is app or DB, I need to store for 1 year. And I know that first 30 to 60 days, I need to give it immediately. I need immediate access within the first 60 days. After that, fine. I can say tomorrow I will give the data. Then what to do? So then first you have to plan what you want to do. Then you create the policy. Don't create the policy with confusion, right? So first you note down something like this: Glacier deep archive. Okay, so first I will put in standard. Then after 30 days I will go to infrequent access so that I can save some money. Then in infrequent access I will keep for 30 days, right? So that 30 plus 30 60, right? 30 plus 30 means here 60, right? If it is September means September first backup means till September end it will be here, October 1st it will come here, till October end it will be here. So total 60 days. Then I will say after 60 days you move to Glacier, right? And then keep it in Glacier for 3 months, that is the 90 days, right? Whatever the value. And then you can move to Glacier deep archive and then keep for 365 days, and then you can say expire. So something like this you have to plan and then do. Straight away don't go to the lifecycle policy, you will get confused, especially if it's the first time you are doing. Okay, so we want to do something like this. So let us do this. So first, what is saying, first step is transition. What do you want to transition? So now here you will see two options: current version, previous version. Okay, so if you have the versioning enabled, then now you have another headache. There will be old versions also, right? So you can use this to clean up the versioning. Suppose if you are not using versioning, no problem, you can ignore this option. You can just say the current version. Suppose your backups bucket, it does not have versioning enabled, then all the files will be the current version. There will be no previous versions. But in case you have previous versions, you can do something with that also. Right, now let us assume there are no previous versions. Right, for now just assume there are no previous versions, so we have only the current version. So what do you want to do for the current versions? That's what it is asking, right? So I want to add a transition. I want to move to standard infrequent access after 30 days. By default I will upload to standard, right? I will keep it in standard for 30 days. After 30 days I want to move to standard infrequent. That's all. Then I want to do another transition. According to us, we want to keep in standard for 30 days, then move to infrequent access. We finished doing that. Now the object is in infrequent access after 30 days. Then I want to move to Glacier after another 30 days. Right? I want to move to Glacier. Right? After 30 days, that is 60 days. Right? So don't worry about this warning. This you have to acknowledge anyway. But what is important here is the days. How are these days calculated? That is very important. Right? That is very important. Otherwise, you will get confused. So when you are uploading an object to S3, you will see an object created date. Right? I showed you that in the console. Right? You will see an object created date. Right? And what is today's date? September 5th. So I am creating the rule today. And I am saying after 30 days, you go to standard infrequent access. Right? I'm saying after 30 days, go to standard infrequent access. So this 30 days is calculated from where? Is it calculated from when I am creating the rule or from when the object was created?
Probably object point of view.
Yes. So the days that you specify is always calculated from object created date. Suppose my object was created in June. On June 1st, I created object, let us say. But the rule I'm creating on September 5th. Then what will happen? Now I'm saying after 30 days, move to standard infrequent access.
In this case, like
in this case, what happens? 30 days is already over. 30 days is already over. So what it will do, immediately it will move to infrequent access.
Yes.
Okay, because it is already more than what you have said. It will accept the value 30, but it will check. The next time the rule runs, it will check, is there any object that matches this condition, that is equal to or greater than 30 days? Okay, there somebody created object on June 1st. The rule was created on September 5th. It will execute on September 6th. So these rules which you created execute approximately once every day, once in a 24-hour period. You cannot manually execute them. It is automatically executed once in a day approximately. So the next time the rule runs, it will check whether this condition is matching, whether there are any objects that are 30 or greater. If there are any objects 30 or greater, it will move to standard infrequent access. Right? Same thing. Then I'm saying after 30 days, you move to Glacier. So it is not 30 days. I'm saying after 60 days, move to Glacier. So it is not 60 days from the previous stage. It is 60 days from the object created date. That is 30 days from here. So that calculation you have to remember. Okay. So whatever, if I say move to Glacier after 60 days, it is 60 days from object created date. All the days are calculated from here, not from the previous stage. If you want to calculate from the previous stage, then accordingly you do the mathematics. Okay. So if I say 60,
but by default it's based on the object created date.
Not by default, it is based on object created date. If you want to calculate from this, then you calculate both together and you do your mathematics. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
We have to do that calculation ourselves. If you want to calculate from the previous stage, then what is the difference between previous stage and object created date? You add those dates and you add it. Right? So I want to keep in, what is our rule? I want to keep in standard for 30 days. Then I want to move it to infrequent access. Then I want to move to Glacier after 1 month. So you have to see that 1 month from the previous thing. Right? I want to keep in infrequent access for 1 month. Right? 30 days. So when will it come to Glacier? You should not say 30 days. You should say 60. Because already in standard it has sat for some days. In Glacier it has sat for some days. That is total is 60. 60 days already over. So here the minimum will be 60. If you put anything below 60, you will get error. So if you say 61 days, that is from the object created date 61. Right? Not from the previous stage. So here if the 30 days is completing on September 1st, it will not go to Glacier on November 1st. No. Right? It goes on the 61st day from object created date. That is how it is calculated. So you have to be careful. Right? All the days which you specify there are from the object created date. It does not matter when you create the rule. Right? So here it is saying 60 days because it has already stayed in standard for 30. So here one more condition is when you are moving to infrequent access, if you try to put a number less than 30, it will not work. Because the rule is if you want to move anything to infrequent access, it has to be in standard for 30 days. That is if you want to do transitions. That is the rule. Right? An object has to be there for 30 days before you can move it to infrequent access. Straight away you can upload to infrequent access. That is possible. But if you want to transition, then that object has to, minimum of 30 days is required before you can transition to infrequent access. So if you don't want to transition to infrequent access, you straight away want to transition to Glacier, you can. You can say straight away put to Glacier. Glacier you can put 0 also. It will take 0 means the next time the rule runs, it will move to Glacier. Why this is important is sometimes they will say my S3 storage cost is lost, is becoming very high. How to optimize? Suppose they're asking you to take a look. Right? Sometimes they will say some consulting or something. They will say please take a look and try to optimize for cost. So you have to look at each service. Now we are talking about S3. So you can go to the S3 service and you can see what is happening. You can open the buckets and say, boss, what are you storing in this bucket? What are you storing in this bucket? Suppose they have a backup bucket. Right? And somebody put everything in standard. They're having a lot of files, a lot of backups. Everything is in standard storage. And they need to store the backup for 2 years. Then it does not make sense to keep in standard. Your cost will be high. So you can ask him, is this backup? How often do you access this? Or we don't access those files. It is just there for backup. Then why are you using standard? Maybe he didn't know. Then what you can do? Maybe this has been happening for a lot of years. Now only you are coming and checking. Okay. Then what you can do? You can create a lifecycle rule, and you can say move all objects to Glacier after 0 days. Then what it will do? All the files it will move to Glacier by tomorrow morning. This is practical use, right? If you see something like this, you want to move everything to Glacier, you just create a lifecycle rule and say Glacier, move to Glacier after 0 days. 0 days means The next time the rule runs, it is done. Or you can say move to Glacier after 2 days. Already, if there are any old files older than 2 days, it will move. The latest files in the past 2 days, it will not move. So this rule keeps executing every day once. It is not a one-time rule. This rule executes once every 24 hours as long as it is active. Right? So the special condition is only for that infrequent access and standard, right? So when you bring something into standard infrequent access, the minimum is 30 days. It has to exist for 30 days. And same thing, if you are bringing anything out from infrequent access to another storage class, so you can't go up, you can't go from infrequent to standard. I told you, you can only come down. Suppose you are moving to Glacier, so you can't move to Glacier in less than 60 days, because if you put something in infrequent access, again there it has to sit for 30 days. Got my point? Again there it has to sit for 30 days. So if you put anything less than 60, it will say it will not accept, because 30 days in standard over 30 days in infrequent access, so total is 60, right? So after 30 days of standard, it will come to infrequent access. Then after minimum of 30 days, it has to be in standard. So 30 plus 30 is 60. So in less than 60 days, it will not go to Glacier. That is the condition now. You can say maybe 61. 61 from when? From object created date, not from the previous step. Right? You get the idea? 61 is from the everything. All these days are from object creation. It is not from the previous. Don't think it is 60 from here. No, it is 60 from object created date, which means it is 30 days from here. Right? Okay, so you can add as many transitions as you want, but for these transitions there might be a small fee. Right? Okay, it depends. Right? There will be a small transition fee depending on how many transitions you are doing, the file size and all that stuff. Right? So you can do any combination of that you want. Right? You can say, okay, I don't want to move to infrequent access. Straight away I will put in Glacier after 30 days. Okay, I know my backup first 1 month, let it be in standard, because again in between if I go to infrequent access, then again I have to keep for another 30 days. I don't want all that. Straight away I will move to Glacier after 30 days. Fine. All this is for, this transition is for the current versions. So previous versions you don't want to do anything. Previous versions is just for safety. Only the latest versions you want to store. Previous versions you let it be there. I don't want to transition. Maybe previous versions will be in standard, let it be there. I want to clean up the previous versions. So then you go to the next step. Next step is where you configure the expiration. Expiration also same thing. You have current version, latest version. So what we said, our current version has to be removed after 365 days. This is what? 365 from object creation date, not from the day it went to Glacier. So your backup says delete after 1 year. So if you take a backup on September 1st, you have to delete it next year September 1st. That is 365 days. In between anything can happen. So all these days are from object creation date. So again, same thing here, practical uses. If somebody has stored a lot of backups, you see a lot of files. Why you have so many files, sir? They are backups. Why don't you remove all the files? We forgot, sir, to remove. So maybe you can create a lifecycle policy and say, you remove all files greater than 365 days. You can go manually and empty the bucket, but you don't want to do that because there might be other backups which are not 365 days old. You can't identify that manually, right? So you can simply create a a rule that says remove all files which are greater than 365 days. Or if you are configuring initially itself, you can configure. So these days are always from object created date, not from the date of the previous transition or from the date when you create the rule. Rule anytime I can create, but the number of days will be calculated based on the object creation date. So I can say expire the current version, that is the latest or current, both mean the same, right? Expire the latest version after 365 days. So it will do the transition, whatever you specified first, then after 365 it will remove the file, remove the current version. So now we have previous versions also. So you can say previous version also you can expire. You can say previous version I want to keep only for 7 days. So it will remove the previous versions after 7 days. It will remove the current version after 365 days. Right? If you don't want, you can leave it. But it is a good practice to clean up previous versions. Okay, you don't want to do any transitions. I just want to clean up the previous versions. I have a bucket which has the versioning. right? A lot of people use the bucket. I get a lot of versions. So what I will do, I don't want any transition. I only want to clean up my old versions every week. So I don't want to do anything to the current version. Just the previous versions, I want to delete after 7 days. You get the idea? So it will not do anything to the current versions. Only if there are any previous versions, it will remove the previous versions after 7 days. And remember, this 7 days is from when it becomes a previous version. When does it become a previous version? Whenever it is overwritten. Otherwise, it is the current version. Right? You get the idea? So when does an object become a previous version? Whenever it is overwritten. Suppose I upload this object on September 1st. So it is the latest version. It will be a latest version. Today also it is latest version only. Right? Today also if you open and check, it will be latest because it has not yet been overwritten. Now on September 5th, if I come and overwrite this file, then what happens? This file becomes the previous version, and then the new one which I put becomes the latest version. So when did this file become previous version? It became the previous version on September 5th. So from September 5th, 7 days, after 7 days, it will remove. On September 12th, it will remove this. So it became the previous version on 5th. So from when it became previous, from that date, 7 days, it will delete. You get the calculation? Now again on September 8th, if I again overwrite, there will be another previous version. There will be two previous versions. One became previous version on the 5th, one became previous version on the 8th, and on 8th there is a new version. So what happens? The file which became the previous version on 5th will be removed on 12th. The file which became previous version on 8th will be removed on 15th. Right? So it is from the date when it turned into a previous version. So you can do that combination, mix and match. Do you want to do only for current version, or do you want to do for previous version, or do you want to only expire the previous versions? You can do that. Apart from that, you have another useful feature called cleanup incomplete multi-part uploads. Right? What is this cleanup incomplete multi-part upload? So like I told you, by default it uses multi-part uploads in a lot of cases. Right? Especially when there are a lot of programmatic access and all that kind of stuff, right? So what happens is your file is split up into smaller parts and it goes to S3, right? And in S3, let us say this is AWS, it reaches S3 in parts, and then S3 will combine all these parts and give you the full object. So what happens if you interrupt the download or you cancel it, right? Then what happens? Whatever has already transferred will be there. You will not see your object. But the parts which have already gone to AWS have gone to AWS. They are stored in S3. You cannot see it in your account as such, but they have gone. So they occupy some space. You have to pay for that. So these incomplete stuff, it is a good practice to clean up, especially for people who are regularly uploading a lot of files. Right? Because if you don't clean up, again, unwanted cost. Right? So you can, how do you clean up? You can use the lifecycle policy to clean up incomplete multi-part uploads. If there are any incomplete multi-part uploads, you can say clean them up after a week. Maybe you're still uploading. Maybe your uploads take a day or two. Right? So you want to clean them up like weekly once. That is the what do you say? That is what a lot of people follow practically. Right? So you can combine or do whatever single action you want using lifecycle policies. These are the possibilities. Right?
So this all will be done by architects or
No, we have to. I mean, see, architect is only purely from the exam point of view. Practically, we have to do all this stuff. In the exam, they will not ask you to do. In the exam, they will ask you in this scenario what to use. Life cycle. We have some backups, so I need to keep for 1 week what to do. That example will come in exam. In exam, what to do? Use life cycle policy. That's all. But practically, you have to create the life cycle policy and do it. Right? So whether they will ask you or they will not ask you, it depends upon which company you are joining, what role you are joining. That's what I said. Practically speaking, these days architect as such, there is no, what do you say, role in most of the places. You have to do this practical work also. That's all. Because if it is purely from architect course point of view, I would have just told what is life cycle policy theory and gone. But this you should know how to do. right? So these are all what I am showing you is what mostly people use. Okay, you should know at least this, right? In your company they may never use life cycle policy or they may never use snowball, so but still we don't know for which company we are going to join, right? So that's why I say if there are 100 jobs, we should be able to apply for at least 60 of them. All 100 you may not qualify or you may not know everything, so at least the majority of the stuff we should be able to apply for and have some high level knowledge at least for some of them in depth, right? So in the exam they will not ask you to create life cycle policy or anything. Okay, you just have to know what is life cycle policy, high level what it is doing, that's all. Okay, so that is life cycle policy.
Yeah.
You can do any combination, all combination or any one, that is up to you. And these rules are run once every 24 hours. If there is anything that is matching, it will do the transition. Okay, I should have saved it. Okay, no problem. Let me do it again. Let me just add some values. Let me say current version. I will say transition to Glacier after 12 days, let us say. Then I acknowledge, right? I will say clean up multi-part uploads after 7 days. Next. So I'm creating this rule. It is showing whatever you configured, right? Whatever you configured as a summary for the whole bucket. The current version I'm putting to Glacier after 12 days, and I'm cleaning up incomplete multi-part uploads after 7 days. And this rule applies to all buckets in the object. If you don't want to, you want to add only a prefix, you can. Okay, and then save. Now this rule has created. So this rule will run once every day. You cannot go and manually execute the rule. It will run usually in the morning or something, once a day, right? Now let us say you don't want to do this anymore, so you can choose the rule and you can disable it, right? Okay, so when you do that, right, when you disable the rule, so already whatever has happened, it will not undo that. From now it will not run, that's all. You understand? Suppose already there is a rule and you disable the rule for some reason, whatever transitions have happened in the past have happened, they will not be undone. If you had asked something to move to Glacier, it would have already moved. It will not go back to standard. If you ask something to remove something, it has been removed. If the action is complete, it is complete. Going forward, it will not do anything, right? That's what it is. Then again, if you want, you can enable the rule. If you don't want the rule, you can delete the rule, right? So if you delete the rule also, same thing. From now onwards, it will not apply. Whatever has already applied has applied. It will not remove any data. Whatever transitions or whatever expiration has happened, they have happened. They will not be undone. If you stop a rule, if you disable a rule or delete a rule, right? That is life cycle policy. Or sorry, life cycle rule. Okay.
I said so respective to this life cycle policy, there is no charge for that, right? AWS will not charge for that, right?
There is a small charge for transitioning to Glacier. There will be a small fee, especially for larger objects. Small fee. It's the transition of certain objects. The transition fee will be there. That's what you see in the warning, right? They will give you some small charge for that.
Okay.
And remember, the other conditions apply. You have to keep the object for the 90 days in Glacier, because you can expire in less than 90 days also. But if you expire anything in less than 90 days or delete anything, then you will be charged the additional delete fee and all that stuff, right? So all that we have to keep in mind. How many days to keep, where to keep, right? So this is mostly used for cost optimization. Or to clean.
So I have one more, I have one follow-up question with respect to that. As we discussed earlier, like so when we are pushing into the AWS, like there is no charge, but when we are entering the AWS, they have some amount of charges applicable, right? So in this case, like we are applying the lifecycle thing, so which means it ultimately pull the data from one storage cycle to another thing. So in that case, is it applicable for like retrieval cost?
No. You are not retrieving. It is just doing data transition. So that's what I said. That transition cost might be there. Their data transfer is not there. That is data
Okay.
transition, not
Transition.
for that it depends. Small fee will be for, I think for big objects per object it is 0.01 per GB or something.
Okay.
Okay. So transfer is when you are moving from one region to other region, or when you are moving from S3 to outside S3, those type of things.
Okay.
Okay. So
yeah.
today we saw multi-part uploads. Sorry, we saw encryption, we saw versioning, we saw lifecycle policies, we saw snowball, we saw multi-part uploads. We didn't see transfer acceleration, right? Did you hear that word?
Yes.
We saw or no?
No.
We didn't see transfer acceleration. Okay, I'm just making a note because 2-3 batches are there, even I'm getting confused. Transfer acceleration we didn't do. Server access logging, replication we didn't do. Okay, so tomorrow we will do all those things. So today we saw encryption, which storage class to use, versioning, lifecycle policies, and that snowball and multi-part uploads.
Yeah.
So you can just make
Correct.
a note of
Yeah.
these headings, and accordingly you can just go through the documentation. And I'll share
Yeah.
the videos also by Monday. By Monday morning I will put up the videos, because previous class I don't think we had anything much technical, so that's why I didn't upload. From today's class I will upload.
Okay. I have two more questions. So,
Yeah.
for example, in the case like we have already uploaded one object with the standard. So, if I want to change that storage class manually, how do I do that?
Have you tried doing that?
I didn't do that. I mean, for example, Glacier 2, I mean, in reverse manner.
See, if you want to take it out of Glacier, you have to do the data restore. Right, I showed you. You have to restore. Right, when you do restore, you have to wait until after the restore it comes to standard.
Okay.
And then maybe you can make a copy of that object and change its storage class.
Okay. Oh, change storage. So, for example, change IA to standard IA to standard.
No, here you can say change storage class.
But we can't go from bottom to up, right?
You want to change from standard IA to standard. So this object is in standard, right? Sorry, standard IA.
Standard IA.
This is in standard IA, right? Yeah. So where do you want to go? You want to go to standard.
Standard. Oh, okay.
You can go, but in the life cycle policy you can't go. Here you can.
Okay.
Life cycle policy you can't go. And at least now, maybe in future it will allow you to go. Now you can't go. At present you can't go. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I say, because in future we don't know what feature they will add.
Okay. And one more final question with respect to the versioning thing. So when you are deleting the object, it ultimately put a delete marker which hides the data.
Yeah.
Even though that the previous version present in our bucket, correct?
So in this bucket we have the versioning enabled. So what it is doing, if you delete in the hide view, that is, if you delete the latest version from here,
it will keep that older versions.
It will keep the latest also. It will just hide everything. Right? It will just hide all of them. On top of this, suppose for AWS.png there are currently 1, 2, 3, 4 versions. One is the latest. So it will hide all these.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it hides also, which means it doesn't delete that older version. So it include when AWS calculating the pricing with respect to the pricing it include the sizes.
Yes,
right?
it didn't
even it is
delete anything. Yeah, it is like putting the files in your laptop in the recycle bin. It still occupies space in your hard drive, right? Your hard drive, you see the space will still be there, but in the folder the file is not there.
Okay.
Same thing, right? Until you physically remove it from the specific version, unless you go here and say delete this version, it is hidden.
Okay.
If you go here and delete, it is gone. If I go here and say you delete the object, then it is gone. Then it is actually deleted.
So for that we need to create a life cycle.
Yes, you can come manually and do, but practically, if you see, nobody will come and delete. So if you want to clean up the previous versions after a week, then you can create lifecycle rule and say after 1 week delete the previous versions, keep the latest version. You want to delete the
Okay,
latest
okay.
also, you can delete the latest. Whatever you want, you keep. Whatever you want, you delete. That's all. There is no hard and fast rule. Your requirement, what
Okay.
you want to do. That's all.
Okay. Yeah, because when you are showing this life cycle policy, there is an option called clean up or delete marker file and all, which means
Yes.
it deletes the entire files, right? I mean, including this previous version, everything. Right?
No, 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 no. I didn't get. Which one are you saying?
In this, when we are showing this life cycle policy,
Okay.
one option called in expressation.
Yeah, it will have the what is a multi-part uploads. Which one?
No, the clean up expired objects, the delete markers.
Yeah, those also, if you want, you can. Right. This again, nobody really uses it because the delete marker itself does not occupy any space. It is 0 bytes. Right. That's what they
Okay.
say. It does not incur any charges. Right.
Will it delete? I mean, all this previous session when
No,
you
no,
are
no, 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 no. It will not delete.
oh,
This is expired delete markers. That is the delete markers
oh,
which have expired. Even after you remove the object also, sometimes some delete markers might be there. Right.
okay, okay, okay.
After deleting the object also, but that is just what you say, just like housekeeping work. That is just cleanup. It does not incur any cost. That's why I didn't talk about it. Right.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. I got it.
Okay, what you
So
need to be careful is multi-part uploads, because this multi-part uploads will cost you money. If there are any
yeah,
incomplete uploads, then it will cost you money. That is, you cancel some upload in between. So some parts are already stored. You cannot see them, but some parts probably are already stored. So to avoid that additional charge for people who are frequently uploading, it is always a good practice for your bucket to clean up multi-part uploads, say every once a week or something, because this will cost you money.
Okay.
Okay, so you can do any combination, or you can have 2 or 3 rules also. One rule to clean up multi-part uploads, one rule for transition. But if there is any overlap in the rule, you will get an error. It will not let you create the error, rule. You can try to create 2 rules, but if there is an overlap, you will get an error. It will say already there is an overlap with the other rule. Suppose in one rule you say move the objects to standard after 30 days. In the other rule for the same bucket you say move the object to glacier after 30 days, then there is a conflict. It will not let you create the second rule.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. So we'll continue tomorrow at 8 a.m. Central time.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, man. Right. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.